Chapter 404. I like it. Yi Zizi said softly. Her twin ponytails immediately flew up, and countless strands of hair silently pierced through the back of everyone's head. Only Zhu Di didn't. Her black hair gradually turned blood red, and a layer of crimson appeared on Yi Zizi's face. She even closed her eyes in intoxication. Zhu Di looked at the scene in front of her and felt that her heart was about to stop. The hand that was holding onto the sword trembled intensely. Why am I not dead? Why is she keeping me alive? In the blink of an eye, other than Zhu Di, all of the princes turned into skin and bones, just like a layer of paper stacked together. I haven't felt so good for a long time, too amazing. You're amazing. Yi Zizi was so excited that even her sweet voice changed, becoming deep and ghostly. Because she was too excited, that cute face looked especially sinister. After a long time, Yi Zizi calmed down and returned to normal. I am not like that usually. Zhu Di, you don't need to explain, you are just like that. That was your true appearance just now. You devil. Licking the corner of her lips, Yi Zizi let out a sweet voice, you can go. Zhu Di was confused, why did she let me go? I heard that devils like to see their enemies running away and enjoy that instant of pleasure before killing them to satisfy their perverted psychological needs. Could it be that this little girl is the same? If you don't go, I will also suck you. Yi Zizi snorted lightly. Zhu Di didn't dare to think too much, running away was better than being sucked, at least there was a trace of hope. Just like that, Yi Zizi looked at Zhu Di running away and didn't chase after her. Zhu Di, who was running away, felt very heavy in her heart. If her body turned cold and her head was removed, she would definitely not be surprised. However, after running for a period of time, nothing actually happened. Seems like the other party really let me go. I immediately heaved a long sigh of relief. Yi Zizi took in a deep breath and yawned. She jumped onto the spirit goat and started to head towards the direction where the two ran away, because there was still something that she hadn't announced yet. As for why she let Zhu Di go, this was also Yi Zizi's sudden change of mind. Although she let Zhu Zhenxing go, Yi Zizi felt that she couldn't let him have it too easy. If she let another person go and told the truth about the situation here, that crown prince would probably panic. If Yi Hua knew that Yi Zizi had such a mind, he would definitely be very gratified. Yi Zizi was no longer that little girl who only knew how to suck up humans. Right now, she had also become courageous and resourceful, and was able to destroy the enemy from within. The Imperial Guards were stationed outside the temporary courtyard. As the commander, Wu Ma Chao was patrolling to see if there were any signs of enemies. His bright eyes were looking at Chang Lin, who was not far away. Suddenly, Wu Ma Chao's gaze focused. A horse ran out of the forest. Open the door. Hurry up and open the door. Zhu Zhenxing, who was on the horse, shouted in a panic. Wu Ma Chao shouted, open the door. Zhu Zhenxing, who was running at top speed, suddenly felt weak and fell off his horse. When the soldiers saw the crown prince fall off his horse, they rushed over. Wu Ma Chao walked over with a puzzled expression. Your Highness. Water. 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 Zhu Zhenxing's face was slack and his eyes were filled with deep fear. A soldier took the water bottle, and Zhu Zhenxing took it and drank it. After drinking the water, he calmed down a little. Wu Ma Chao asked in a deep voice, Your Highness. Where are the other princes? Dead. They're all dead. Zhu Zhenxing murmured. He looked like he was quite frightened. Hearing Zhu Zhenxing's answer, Wu Ma Chao's expression tightened. He asked, Your Highness. This matter cannot be joked about. What happened? Monster. They're all monsters. They're all dead. Zhu Zhenxing yelled at Wu Ma Chao. Wu Ma Chao's expression darkened. He immediately shouted, Pass down my order. All troops, be on guard. Report. Prince Zhu Di has returned. A soldier quickly came over to report. Not long after, Zhu Di rode his horse back with a gloomy expression. He jumped off his horse and looked at the exhausted Zhu Zhenxing. Wu Ma Chao frowned. The crown prince had said that everyone was dead. How could there still be someone alive? He walked forward and asked, Prince Zhu Di, what happened? Zhu Di, with an obscure expression, walked past Wu Ma Chao towards Zhu Jingqing. He lowered his head to look at the person who should have died and raised his fist. Bang! This fist ruthlessly landed on Zhu Jingqing's face. Wu Ma Chao was stunned. Zhu Di was Zhu Jingqing's trusted aide. He was like his own son. What was happening today? Wu Ma Chao didn't expect things to turn out like this. He immediately pulled back the rampaging Zhu Di. Prince! You'll get into trouble like this. Beating up the crown prince was a serious crime. Moreover, there were so many people watching. Don't pull me back. I'm going to kill this animal today. Zhu Di felt a wave of lingering fear when he thought about what had just happened. Although he had helped the crown prince, that was only a power struggle. However, this was related to the safety of the empire, and he had crossed the line. That little girl had killed all the princes. He wouldn't let her off so easily. Following Zhu Di's curses, all the soldiers were shocked. This Prince Zhu Di dared to insult the crown prince. Did he not want to live anymore? Zhu Jingqing, who had been punched, seemed to wake up. He stood up and gave the prince a kick. Motherf **Ker, I'll kill you. Zhu Jingqing coldly shouted. Wu Ma Chao immediately gave the order to separate the two and bring them to see the emperor. Right now, Zhu Qingxian was currently pampering an imperial concubine. Right when he was about to do it, a voice sounded out from outside the door. Your Majesty, the crown prince and the princes have started fighting. Zhu Qingxian was originally very excited, but when he heard what the emperor said, he immediately lost all interest. Zhu Qingxian stood up, and that imperial concubine's face was filled with hidden bitterness. Just a little bit more, after arriving at the front hall, Zhu Qingxian looked at his two sons and asked gravely, what happened to the two of you? You even caused a ruckus here. Father Emperor. Zhu Jingqing caused a huge ruckus. Zhu Di knelt onto the ground. Before Zhu Jingqing could say anything, a soldier hurriedly rushed in. Fear could be seen on the soldier's face as he said, Your Majesty. A little girl appeared in Changlin, she. Hearing the word little girl, Zhu Jingqing and Zhu Di's expression immediately changed. What happened to her? Zhu Qingxian asked gravely. She kidnapped all the princes. What? Zhu Qingxian suddenly stood up and shouted out. The might of an emperor immediately spread out. Wu Ma Chao cupped his hands and said, Your Majesty, please calm your anger. Let me go and take a look. I will go with you. The two of you, kneel here. After finished speaking, the emperor didn't even look at his two sons and walked out of the front hall with Wu Ma Chao. Chapter 405. Behind Yizizi, the three corpse Kuns stood upright. Their enormous bodies emitted a tyrannical aura that soared to the heavens. Although the soldiers stationed outside the courtyard stood firm, their bodies were trembling. They had never seen such a scene before. After all, they were only the guards of the imperial palace. They were only responsible for the safety of the imperial palace, and there had been no casualties in the imperial palace for the past 1,000 years. Some of the family members of the princes in the courtyard seemed to have received some news. Then, seeing the emperor hurriedly walk out, they all followed him out to observe the situation. When Zhu Qingxian and Wu Ma Chao stood on the temporary stone wall, they were shocked by the scene in front of them. Hundreds of princes were suspended in mid-air, their faces filled with terror and terror. Zhu Qingxian gripped the wall tightly with both hands, his eyes filled with anger. Those were his sons. That's a corpse Kun, a vicious beast from outside the border. Not a single one has appeared in 1,000 years, but now 3 have appeared. How is this possible? Wu Ma Chao muttered with fear in his eyes. Having guarded the border for many years, he understood this kind of vicious beast the best. It was incomparably brutal. At that time, he was still a young man. He had followed his father and encountered the corpse Kun once. That battle had resulted in countless casualties before the corpse Kuan was repelled. However, his father was heavily injured and passed away in the last few years. It could be seen how powerful this vicious beast was. Zhu Qingxian calmed down and shouted in a deep voice, "Who are you? Why are you capturing this emperor's sons? Hurry up and let them go." "No," Yi Zizi mumbled as she sucked on her lollipop. Why did this sentence sound so helpless and infuriating? Zhu Qingxian was infuriated. His words were like a sharp blade stabbing into his chest. Go save this emperor's son. Where is the heavenly master? Where is my heavenly master? Your Majesty, the celestial master is ill and did not come, Wu Ma Chao said in a deep voice. Ying Wei did not come. It was obvious that he was dissatisfied with the emperor. Your Majesty, calm down. This is a corpse Kuan, you can't act rashly. Otherwise, the consequences will be unthinkable. Wu Ma Chao tried his best to persuade them. This small number of people wouldn't even be enough to fill the gaps between the corpse Kuan's teeth. This emperor's child. The princes struggled helplessly in midair. They looked at their father on the stone wall and stretched out their hands. This was a son's plea to his father for help. Father, please save your son. Imperial father, I don't want to die. I didn't participate in the power struggle. I don't want to die. The princes' wives were also standing on the stone walls. When they saw their husbands, they couldn't help but cover their faces in disbelief. Some even cried loudly, and some even knelt behind Emperor Zhu Qingxian, begging him to save their husbands. They were all innocent. Hey, are you the emperor? Yi Zizi shouted at Zhu Qingxian. Zhu Qingshuan's breathing was rapid, but he had calmed down a little. I am. Yi Zizi licked her lollipop. I finally found you. The reason why I came here today is to pass on his honor's decree. Your honor. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. How did they provoke a supreme being? Is there some kind of misunderstanding between us? Zhu Qingshuan's anger subsided a lot as he asked. Just ask the crown prince and you'll know. Yi Zizi slowly floated in the air and flew towards Zhu Qingxian. The princes in the air also hovered over. What are you trying to do? Wu Ma Caohu shouted in front of Zhu Qingxian. Yi Zizi retracted her smile and said coldly, according to his honor's decree, you have 3 days to prepare. 3 days later, his honor will come here and bathe the imperial city in blood. As soon as she finished speaking, hundreds of princes violently twitched and instantly turned into skin and bones. All the generals were stunned. They couldn't even muster the will to resist. This was not a fight on the same level. Zhu Qingshuan's eyes were bloodshot as he watched his son die in front of him. He clenched his fists tightly, and the princes' wives all cried until they fainted. Yi Zizi sucked on her lollipop again. 3 days. Hurry up and bring out your strongest abilities. Don't disappoint his honor. Goodbye. After she finished speaking, she revealed a cute smile and disappeared into the air. The 3 corpse Kuan drilled into the ground and disappeared without a trace. However, they were still hidden dangers. Zhu Qingxian looked at the skin and bones on the ground. His head was dizzy, and his body fell backwards. Your Majesty. Wu Ma Caohu hurriedly supported him. Zhu Qingxian grabbed Wu Ma Caohu's arm. His eyes were bloodshot, and his face was distorted. Go back. I need to properly interrogate that unfilial son. On top of the stone wall, everyone was crying. The soldiers' bodies were stiff, and they didn't even have the strength to lift their legs. Outside, hundreds of skin and bones were scattered. The scene was shocking. This made everyone realize a problem. In front of absolute power, even the imperial family had no way to resist. Zhu Qingxian hurriedly walked towards the hall. His expression was frighteningly gloomy. Behind him, Wu Ma Caohu was also frowning. This matter was actually related to the crown prince, and his son's disappearance? Could it be? Thinking about this, Wu Ma Caohu emitted a faint killing intent. At this moment, Zhu Jingqing and Zhu Di were still kneeling in the hall. When they heard the footsteps outside, they immediately lowered their heads. Especially Zhu Jingqing, he could no longer remain calm. Zhu Qingxian walked towards the crown prince and fiercely kicked Zhu Jingqing, sending him flying. Then, he immediately sat on the main seat. Zhu Jingqing's body was like a cannonball as he fiercely smashed out of the room. Waves of muffled sounds rang out from outside. It could be seen how powerful the kick was. Zhu Di. Tell me what happened. Zhu Di didn't dare to lie and told everything that happened just now. Zhu Qingxian felt a wave of dizziness after hearing it and suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Your Majesty. Father Emperor. At this moment, waves of hurried footsteps rang out from outside again. The Empress, Che Mainyang, and Che Hongliang could be seen appearing. Your Majesty, Yun-er, where's my Yun-er? Che Mainyang's beautiful face revealed a panicked expression. Meanwhile, Che Hongliang hurriedly bowed with a grave expression. Empress, out of all the princes, only Zhu Jingqing and I are left, the other princes have all died. Zhu Di said sorrowfully. Che Mainyang blankly looked at Zhu Di, who was kneeling on the ground. A few hours ago, my son was alive and well, and a few hours later, he told me that he died. Empress. Che Hongliang cried out in surprise. The Empress could be seen directly fainting on the ground. Emperor Zhu Qingxian gasped for breath and said coldly, Go. Go and bring that unfilial son over. Yes. Wumatsaohu replied coldly. After quite a while, Wumatsaohu carried Zhu Jingqing over. Right now, Zhu Jingqing's entire body was covered in blood, and he had suffered very serious external injuries. However, his life was not in danger. Speak. Tell me everything in full detail. I, the Emperor, have lost a few hundred of my sons today. I don't mind losing another one. Zhu Qingxian stared fixedly at Zhu Jingqing. What that little girl said just now was very obvious. Everything that happened was because of Zhu Jingqing. This is Highness the Crown Prince. Father Emperor, I'll speak. I'll speak. Right now, how would Zhu Jingqing dare to hide anything? Your son accidentally found Nuwa's bloodline and Donghuang's bloodline. The hunt would last for 7 days. Could it be that something had happened? This was what everyone was thinking. Moreover, from the number of people in the group, there were a lot fewer people, and those who were missing were princes dressed in luxurious clothes. This gave rise to all kinds of speculations. The team did not land outside the imperial city. Instead, they flew directly into the imperial palace. Of course, the news of all the princes being killed had to be kept under wraps. Otherwise, it would cause unnecessary panic. After Zhu Qingxian returned to the palace, he immediately summoned all the ministers to discuss how to deal with this matter. Heavenly Master, do you have a good plan to repel the enemy? Zhu Qingxian, who was sitting on the throne, asked in a low voice. His tone was filled with desolation. Anyone who encountered such a thing would collapse, but Zhu Qingxian was the emperor. No matter how great the pressure was, he had to endure it. Ying Wei turned around and cupped his hands. Your Majesty, the blood ray has come true. Everyone present was silent. The legend of the blood ray was true. It had only been a few days, yet it had already happened. 3 days later, it would be even more impossible. Not to mention anything else, just the 3 corpse kun were enough to keep them busy. What bullsh** T blood ray? This subject believes that in a battle between 2 armies, the one who strikes first has the advantage. If your Majesty trusts this subject is willing to take 100,000 soldiers and slaughter that lower plane as an offering to the heroic spirits of the princes. Wu Ma Chao was brimming with murderous intent. The little girl only knew demonic techniques. It was only because of the 3 corpse kun's presence that he didn't dare to act. Moreover, the corpse kun was a vicious beast from heaven's domain. Those lower planes didn't have them, so there was nothing to be afraid of. Che Hongliang disagreed and cupped his hands, saying, General Wu, if we send out our troops, then there will be no room for negotiation. You have to know that the other party could be a supreme. So what if he's a supreme? Can a supreme kill princes as he pleases? Wu Ma Chao was a bit selfish. He wanted to take revenge for his son. As for the little girl the crown prince spoke of, she was killed because they were not as skilled. Ing Wei calmly said, "Your Majesty, this subject believes that we should invite a supreme to mediate this matter." Is there a need for a supreme for such a small matter? Your Majesty, allow this subject to take revenge for the princes. That way, Your Majesty will be at ease. General Wu, if you really bring your troops there, then it will be a battle to the death. Che Hongliang warned. A general was a general after all, he was brainless. Wu Ma Chao coldly snorted, who knows if the little girl is bluffing. Your Majesty, we cannot be scared out of our wits by the enemy. Chapter 407. This servant will not hesitate to risk my life. This servant will go and prepare now. Go. Wu Ma Chao bowed and left. Soon after, he went to gather 100,000 soldiers to take revenge for his son. In the palace hall, Sky Teacher sighed. Rather than attacking, I might as well express my goodwill. This is the best way to avoid this disaster. However, this was normal for His Majesty. It had been a long time since the royal family suffered a loss. For the royal family's face, they had to fight back. Sky Teacher, go and prepare for the ceremony. If General Wu Ma does not return tomorrow morning, we will ask Jizun for help. Right now, Zhu Qingxian only planned to use these two plans. He had a lot of confidence in Jizun. After all, Jizun was a very ethereal being. He was above gods and controlled the laws of the world. And the other party was just a self-proclaimed his honor. Who knows if it was real or fake? However, those three corpse Kuan were indeed very hard to deal with. Your Majesty, please be at ease. This servant will naturally make proper arrangements and do my best to get through this disaster. Ing Wei was a conservative person. Although the suggestion that he made was not very aggressive, it was very practical. If they followed Ing Wei's suggestion and sent someone to get in touch with Yi Hua and try to satisfy Yi Hua's request, there might be a trace of hope to solve the problem. Alright, there is no hope at all. Under Zhu Jingqing's attitude, Yi Hua had already determined his ending. Not only his ending, but the ending of the people around him as well. At that very moment, within the ruins of Ji family, there were 6 figures. They were huddled together and seemed to be discussing something. What is it? GGG, Imperial Translation, I want this place. Sun Fang, what is this fellow saying? He is speaking in a dialect, I don't understand. Then, we want this place. You guys go to Ing family and guard it. No, I want this place. You guys go to Ing family and Voidless Realm. These 6 people were naturally Voidless Realm and Death Mage. Death Mage, Sun Fang, Green and Red Brothers, plus Tang Wei and Zishan. The 6 of them followed his honor's instructions and came to wait for Yi Hua. Because Yi Hua felt that after Yi Zizi caused such a ruckus, the other party would definitely not sit still and do nothing. There was a possibility that the other party would take action. And the other party would definitely take action against the remaining 2 big shots or everyone. Thus, Yi Hua specially ordered Wei Chang to deal with them. Of course, Wei Chang wouldn't deal with it himself, so he arranged for his subordinates. In the beginning, he had called Death Mage and Sun Fang, but after feeling that there were too few people, he decided to call the Green and Red Brothers. In the end, when Tang Wei heard that there was going to be a fight, her hands became a bit itchy. Wei Chang naturally doted on Tang Wei a lot, and thus, he gave Tang Wei a chance to gain some experience. Adding on Zishan, who was by the side, there were only 6 of them. The 6 of them were divided into groups of 2, each guarding the 3 giants. However, all 6 of them knew that if they were to really come to Voidless Realm, they would definitely appear in Voidless Realm first, and there was at least an 88% chance that they would appear there. This was what Zishan had said herself, because if she really wanted to come here, the deities would definitely go and investigate, and there would be records of her. As soon as he said that, everyone wanted to stay here because there was work to do. They were so bored that their scalps were falling off. Hearing these women arguing, Big Brother Green said, "How about we play rock paper scissors? The winner will guard the G family's side, and the loser will guard the other two sides. How about it?" After Sun Fong heard it, she felt that it was fine. Zishan and Tang Wei also felt that it was not a bad idea. "Little brother, go." Big Brother Green pushed Yi Hong forward. As for Tang Wei, she pushed Zishan forward. "You don't want a husband and wife team, and yet, you want a brother team? You don't want your wife, be careful of Zishan getting angry and killing you." Yi Hong looked at Zishan, then immediately shifted his gaze away. Yi Hong's heart was thumping wildly. Although they were already an old couple, every time Yi Hong saw Zishan, his heart would be in a mess, and every day, he felt as if he was living the feeling of his first love. Death Mage pushed Sun Fong forward. "This woman's luck was good, back then, she helped me fish and won quite a bit of money." Before playing rock paper scissors, Zishan secretly glared at Yi Hong, seemingly saying, "If you dare to win against me, don't enter the room today, go sleep on the sofa." Yi Hong felt that Zishan was threatening him, and naturally, he wouldn't fight with his wife over Zishan. This was a kind of display of doting on his wife. Rock paper scissors. "Oh yeah, I win," Sun Fong laughed, then used a pair of scissors to wipe the two of them. Yi Hong spread out his hands. "Don't blame me." Zishan snorted, acting coquettishly. After that, she left Ji family with Tang Wei and headed towards Ying family. As for the Green and Red brothers, they went to Voidless Realm. Meanwhile, inside Leisure Bar's office, Yi Hua was smoking a cigarette while standing beside the window and staring at the night sky, and Wei Chang was respectfully standing behind him. "Your Honor, will they come?" Wei Chang asked in a low voice. Yi Hua spat out a mouthful of smoke, and the smoke transformed into a skull, which was soon blown away by a breeze. According to those people's way of thinking, they definitely won't leave the matter at that. What's the saying again? Attack when the enemy is unprepared. Yi Hua said indifferently, then lightly flicked away the cigarette ash with his index finger, then took another puff of the cigarette. "Comfortable." Wei Chang immediately complimented, "Your Honor is truly courageous and resourceful." Subordinate is convinced. "Wei Chang, I am already tired of hearing those words, prepare some new words." "Extremely smart?" Yi Hua almost choked on his own cigarette. Touching onto his own hair, he said, "If I were to become extremely smart, you would be the first one I would target." His Honor is just saying it casually. "I have already said that I have stewed Lai Gu a few thousand times, but I still haven't stewed it yet." "Your Honor, how many people are going to go 3 days later?" Yi Hua took one last puff of the cigarette, then said faintly, "Everyone." Wei Chang, who was behind Yi Hua, revealed out a strange smile, seemingly like he was already impatient. There will always be some fellows who don't know the difference between life and death and want to anger his honor. After knowing the consequences of their actions, it will be too late for regrets. In this world, there is no if. Bayubiubiu, bayubiubiu, bayubiubiu. Imperial translation, "Wife, how many gold coins have you sent?" Right now, Death Mage and Sun Fong were sitting at the entrance of Ji family's house. Sun Fong was still sitting cross-legged on the broken chair, and her pair of tender fingers were tapping on the screen frantically. Death Mage, who was at the side, was not inferior in any way either. These two people are simply demon hands. "Don't make a sound, we are fighting a boss." "Aya, it is all your fault for distracting me," and the boss was actually snatched away by someone else. Sun Fong snorted. She was not willing to accept this outcome. "Let's do another 648, I will kill you too." Death Mage looked at Sun Fong, who was at the side, and deeply despised her. "Right now, I don't even need to top up money when I'm fishing, do you believe me?" Death Mage secretly opened up the top-up interface and instantly tapped on 648. Then, he scanned his face and paid. Death Mage's movements were so skillful that he looked like a habitual criminal. "What are you doing?" "Top up money." Sun Fang glared at Death Mage. GGG, Imperial Translation, top up money? Impossible, it is impossible for me to top up money in my entire life. Within the pitch-black ruins of G family, a different rhythm of music rang out. Furthermore, that noise seemed to have added a bit of liveliness to the ruins. Meanwhile, within Heaven's Manor, Wu Ma Chao had already finished his preparations. Looking at his 100,000-strong army, every single one of them was a fierce warrior who had been through hundreds of battles. Going to a low-level plane, wouldn't it be just a matter of slaughtering dogs? Soldiers. I don't want to say any unnecessary words, I only have one request. Wu Ma Chao paused for a moment, then swept his fierce eyes around. Kill all of the living beings in front of us. Long live the general. Long live the general. What kind of feeling was it to have 100,000 soldiers shouting at the same time? If an ordinary person were to hear it, their entire body would go numb, and their brain would immediately be filled with blood. Chapter 408. Just as Zishan had guessed, Wu Ma Chao's teleportation location was indeed according to Ho Xuelin and Zhu Jingqing's. Therefore, he appeared at the Ji family's ruins. At this moment, a colorful glow appeared in the sky above the Ji family, illuminating the ruins of the Ji family. The light fell like a waterfall, covering the entire Ji family's ruins. The scene was breathtaking, and of course, it was very grand. Figures gradually appeared in the light. Tens of thousands of people stood in a square formation, bringing with them an austere aura. After the light disappeared, the austere aura became heavier and heavier, forming a murderous aura. Everyone's eyes shone with a bloodthirsty light. Towards such a low-level plane, the soldiers only had one thought: to slaughter. Wu Ma Chao scanned the unfamiliar world. The air quality was not ordinary, and just smelling it made him want to vomit. However, an unusual sound rang out in the originally peaceful night. Bayubiubiu, Wu Ma Chao, who was standing at the front of the army, raised his eyebrows. What was that sound? It seemed so young and immature. At that moment, Wu Ma Chao was wearing a black armor. Both of his shoulders were diamond-shaped and embedded with golden godly pearls. His breastplate was slightly protruding like the sharp teeth of a beast. Together with the half-moon broadsword in his hand, he looked like a god descending from the heavens. General. Be careful, there might be a trap. Wait for me to check, the deputy general cupped his hands and shouted. Wu Ma Chao sneered. He raised the ancient godly weapon in his hand and slashed it down. Suddenly, a loud sound rang out. The huge broadsword formed a fan shape and swept out with a boundless and ferocious aura. It was as if it was going to crush everything in front of it. However, that was the case. In an instant, the buildings in front of him were all turned into powder. A man and a woman could be seen sitting not far away, playing with something with their heads lowered. And the sound of bayubiubiu was coming from here. Wu Ma Chao was a bit shocked. Who were these two people? How could they control the power of the ancient godly weapon and not be turned into powder? They're here. Let's go take care of them. Sun Fang raised her head and took a look. It seemed that the game in her hands was more important. Death Mage let out a jijia jijia sound. Imperial translation: you fought for this yourself. How can you let me take care of it? Sun Fang seemed to be able to understand what he was saying. She said in a sweet voice, are you going or not? If you're not going, then I won't top up the money for you. Seems like the person in charge of the money is Sun Fang. This caused Death Mage to be a little depressed. Stacking the phone and the power bank together, Death Mage placed them on the chair, and only after making sure that they would not fall down, did he feel relieved. Actually, there was no difference between him and the Crown Prince. HM. You guys are fighting already? Do you need my help? The Green and Red brothers suddenly appeared at the scene. Zishan and Tang Wei also suddenly appeared here. The four of them stood in the sky and curiously looked at the army of 100,000 in front of them. The scale was not small at all. They actually sent out so many cannon fodder. That's right, in their eyes, these people could only be called cannon fodder. Wu Ma Chao looked at Zishan, who was one of the two women. He thought to himself, do they look alike, or are they the wives of the Marquis? Also, what is the meaning of the sudden appearance of 2 men and 2 women? Helpers? However, only 4 came. Hee, the people of this low-level plane must have some problems with their brains. Stop messing around. Can't you see that my little skeleton is acting cool? Sun Fang laughed. The little skeleton and Wu Ma Chao looked at Death Mage, who was holding the scythe of death. Death Mage revealed his skull. Wu Ma Chao's gaze was startled. He didn't expect Death Mage to be from the undead race. He was actually suppressed by a skeleton. Wouldn't it be embarrassing if this were to spread out? In this kind of trash plane, only this kind of low-level undead race would appear. Of course, Zishan knew Wu Ma Chao. However, she wasn't very familiar with him. She had heard about this person before. She quite admired Wu Ma Chao. He guarded the border all year round in exchange for peace. However, she didn't expect him to be the one leading the army today. If they could instigate this person to defect, it would be a fortunate thing for the team. General Wu Ma. Zishan shouted. Chapter 409. You are Madame Zi Yuan? Wu Ma Chao looked at Zishan in the sky and asked. Zishan paused for a moment, then said indifferently, I do not have any relationship with that Ho Shuolin. Please do not call me Madame Zi Yuan, my name is Zishan. Alright, then Zishan, what do you mean by this? Wu Ma Chao did not want to waste any more words. This Zishan's attitude was clearly a traitor. She betrayed Heaven's manner, betrayed her faith. General Wu Ma, a wise man, submits to circumstances. If you and your subordinates surrender to his honor, then we will be able to avoid a lot of casualties. Ha! Ha ha ha! Wu Ma Chao laughed after hearing that. He did not expect Zishan to persuade them to surrender. Zishan, did I hear wrongly? You want to persuade them to surrender? I am Heaven's Manor's General Zhenyuan. My family has been guarding the border for generations, allowing Heaven's Manor's people to live a good life. This glory is my faith. And you abandoned your faith and helped the tyrant. However, even if you surrender, I will not let any of you go. Everyone in this low-level plane will pay a heavy price for what you have done. Even after death, your soul will be cursed by the heavens. Zishan shook her head after hearing that. General Wu Ma, why bother? Your stubbornness will make the warriors behind you sacrifice for nothing. What a joke. My soldiers were brought up by me. They do not fear anything. As long as it is an enemy, they will bravely charge forward, even if it means death. Isn't that right? Do not fear death. Do not fear death. Do not fear death. Waves of high-spirited voices soared into the sky. That deep and resounding voice made one's scalp go numb. The Green and Red brothers could feel it very clearly. This was morale. Zishan, it's useless. Sun Fang slowly put down her phone. She knew that Zishan wanted to persuade her people. However, it took you so much effort to change your mind. For a general to change his side just because of a few words from you, there must be a conspiracy behind it. Zishan deeply sighed and turned around, as if she did not want to see her comrades being massacred. Upon seeing that, Yihong hurriedly walked in front of Zishan. She did not know how to comfort Zishan and could only gently hug her. Wu Ma Chao snorted coldly when he saw this. A high and mighty god was actually following a lowly human. He was the scum of the gods, a disgrace to all the gods. Lowly skeleton. I'll let you see how this general breaks your bones. Just as he finished speaking, the skeleton opposite him tossed the scythe in his hand into the air. GGG, Royal Translation, Death Absorption. The death scythe in the hands of the death mage was not an ordinary item. Although in terms of toughness, it seemed to be inferior to the Xian Yuan sword, which was an ancient godly item, the death scythe was an artifact that could be used for both offense and defense. It was not a real weapon. It was just like the staff in the hands of a mage. Although its attack power was low, its magic power was very strong. The Scythe of Death followed the same principle. In the Scythe of Death, there was a terrifying power hidden within it. It was the super move that came with the Scythe of Death. Death Absorption. If it was used at this time, it would be obvious that it was an area of effect attack. If it was a single target attack, it would take a long time. Therefore, Death Mage was a very good mid-laner. Sometimes, he would even pretend to be a top laner, but in the end, he would be beaten to a pulp. Death Mage was a good jungler, snatching all kinds of resources. When the Scythe of Death was tossed into the air, it immediately began to spin. The speed became faster and faster, and it was as if a circular black hole had appeared in the air. Although it gave people an illusion, it was not an illusion. It was a real black hole, a black hole that led to death. A terrifying aura was emitted from the black hole. Wu Ma Chao was shocked. Everyone, listen to my command, get into formation. Ha! The 100,000 generals shouted in unison, and they immediately blocked the terrifying aura. A barrier enveloped everyone within it. The black hole was still expanding, and the aura emitted from it was getting heavier and heavier. It was firmly suppressing the barrier. With the naked eye, it could be seen that the circular barrier seemed to be being pushed, and it looked like a bubble that was about to explode. Finally, the black hole in the air no longer expanded, but it was currently at least 100 meters in radius. It was pitch black inside, and the 100,000 soldiers could clearly see it. It was impossible to think that this was the end. The ruins of the Ji family slowly rose. Wu Ma Chao's gaze shifted over, and he saw that the ruins were actually being sucked into the black hole. However, the suction was getting stronger and stronger. The buildings were no longer rising slowly, but were forcefully sucked in. Some trees were even uprooted. Steady! Wu Ma Chao shouted loudly. What kind of technique was this? How could it be so abnormal? All the soldiers stabbed their weapons into the ground, but the suction of the black hole was getting stronger and stronger. Their feet left long marks on the ground. Even though their weapons were cutting through the ground, they could not stop the suction. The 100,000 soldiers immediately fell into chaos. The barrier was extremely unstable. All of a sudden, the barrier broke. Ah ah ah. Ah ah ah. Ah ah. The moment the barrier broke, countless soldiers' bodies rose into the air, and they were mercilessly swallowed. There was no blood or violence in this scene, only painful wails. The strongest, Wu Ma Chao, shouted angrily. A layer of golden light wrapped around him, and he stabbed the ancient divine weapon in his hand into the ground. His feet stomped hard, and he sank deep into the ground. Do not panic. Resist this suction. Wu Ma Chao shouted angrily. He watched the countless figures being sucked into the black hole, but he could not do anything. Even now, he was still trying to protect himself. Many soldiers began to imitate the general, but their strength was different. Even though they were imitating, they were still sucked into the black hole. General! Save me! Wu Ma Chao turned his head and saw a young and tender-looking youth reaching out his hand. His eyes were filled with panic. He probably hadn't married yet. Wu Ma Chao reached out, but he missed. He could only watch as the young soldier was sucked into the black hole. General! This time, Wu Ma Chao caught him. Vice General! General, thank you. The Vice General revealed a smile. He was not thanking the general for saving him, he was thanking the general for taking care of him all these years. Wu Ma Chao's rigid face was also moved. Do not panic. I will have a way to save you all. However, the suction was getting stronger and stronger. The Vice General's body was lifted high as if he was being pulled by something. Wu Ma Chao's feet began to move underground. It was easy to see how terrifying this suction was. General, let go. Thank you for taking care of us all these years. The Vice General saw that the general was not letting go. He was grateful, but he could not drag the general down with him. What nonsense are you saying? We still have to go back together. Chapter 410. The Deputy General smiled and looked at his general. He did not follow the wrong person in this life. Don't let go. Hold on for me. Wu Ma Chao slightly lowered his head and spoke with a commanding tone. The Deputy General had followed him through life and death, so he naturally valued this favor. However, the Deputy General's body had already been torn apart by the suction force. Only his hand and that sincere smile remained. After an unknown amount of time, the screams stopped, and the suction force stopped as well. Wu Ma Chao gasped for breath and raised his head. I said I would. He did not finish his sentence because he saw the Deputy General. Without the suction force, the Deputy General's body drooped down. He was indeed holding on to the Deputy General's hand, but it was only his hand and that smile. Wu Ma Chao let go of the Deputy General's hand and slowly straightened his body. The black hole in the sky had already disappeared. He slowly turned his head. The hundreds of thousands of soldiers behind him had also disappeared. Other than his Deputy General, there was nothing left. This made Wu Ma Chao feel as if he was dreaming. A gentle breeze blew past. Wu Ma Chao took off his helmet. His rigid face seemed to have aged a lot. His eyes were filled with unwillingness and guilt. The opponent only used one move. One move. His elite army was completely gone. At this moment, Wu Ma Chao felt as if the heavens were playing a joke on him. How could there be such a person in a low-level plane like this? No wonder Zi Shan betrayed us and even advised me to surrender. So what she said was true. If I surrendered, I would have been able to save the lives of hundreds of thousands of soldiers. However, I did not listen. That's why there were so many casualties. How am I supposed to face my dead soldiers? This kind of death is meaningless. The gentle breeze messed up Wu Ma Chao's hair. His black hair was mixed with some white hairs, and they gradually turned white. In an instant, his black hair turned white. This was the self-blame of a general. He deeply regretted his orders. Wu Ma Chao suddenly knelt beside the Deputy General. He inserted both his hands into the ground and used them to dig a hole. Once. Twice. Thrice. Wu Ma Chao buried his Deputy General on the spot. Then, he picked up the ancient godly item beside him and stood up. Looking at the skeletons not far away and the people standing in the sky, Wu Ma Chao coldly shouted, "Today, you killed 100,000 of my soldiers. Tomorrow, I will kill 1 million, 10 million of you. I, Wu Ma Chao, curse all of you with my soul." Death Mage let out a cackling sound. Royal translation, curse rebound. Today, I, Wu Ma Chao, admit defeat. However, if there is a next life, I will still stand against you. Wu Ma Chao's body gradually emitted a terrifying aura. The ancient divine weapon in his hand also shone brightly. Death Mage had been waiting for this moment. It had been a long time since he had fought, and he could finally have a one-on-one fight. Be careful. He wants to detonate his primordial spirit and ancient divine tool. Zi Shan suddenly cried out in alarm. The few of them were stunned. Were they not going to fight anymore? Suicide? Wu Ma Chao's heart was filled with guilt. He had already lost all desire to fight. If he had listened to the heavenly teacher's advice, then this would not have happened. Who would be responsible for the deaths of 100,000 soldiers? Only an incompetent general like him would be responsible. You guys are indeed very strong. But no matter how strong you are, you can't be stronger than a sovereign. Just wait to receive the wrath of a sovereign. I will be waiting for you on the road. Ha ha ha. In the midst of Wu Ma Chao's crazed laughter, his body became brighter and brighter. A berserk aura swept out in all directions, and the ancient divine tool gradually cracked open. A world-destroying aura was fusing together. Death Mage let out a breath. Cackle cackle. Royal translation, flight restriction. Wu Ma Chao was surrounded by a layer of transparent bubble. Boom! Wu Ma Chao turned into a speck of light within the bubble and exploded along with the ancient divine tool. The inside of the bubble was distorting. The multicolored energy seemed to be very violent. It wanted to explode, but it was surrounded by the bubble. ZZZT. A crack actually appeared on the surface of the bubble. Soon after, more and more cracks appeared. In the blink of an eye, the bubble exploded. The entire ground of the G family trembled, and the barrier of the G family almost shattered. If it was not for the flight restriction absorbing the first wave of damage, the consequences of this terrifying self-detonation would have been unimaginable. However, Death Mage, who was the closest to the explosion, was also affected by it. He even slid backwards. This kind of self-detonation was a qualitative change. It was not only the primordial spirit, but also the ancient divine tool. Even a pervert like Death Mage was forced to slide backwards a few meters. It must be said that Wu Machao's self-detonation was quite effective. At the very least, it made Death Mage retreat. There was a loud bang. Death Mage, who was sliding backwards, felt that he bumped into something and turned his head to take a look. Oh God, my phone fell onto the ground. This is the latest iPhone XS. It was not easy for me to get Sun Fong to buy it for me, and it was the highest specs. Now that it fell onto the ground, Death Mage's heart was broken. He picked it up and took a look. If Death Mage's face had flesh, he would definitely be shocked. Because a crack had appeared on the screen. I am a perfectionist, how can I allow such a flaw? Sun Fong took a look. If you don't fish in the future, I will buy you a new one. Don't fish? Aren't you asking for my life? At most, I will just play with it first. Maybe I will get used to it after playing for a while. Everyone, we will be leaving first. Sun Fong smiled and left with Death Mage. Tang Wei and Big Brother Green tactfully left as well, leaving behind Yihong and Zishan. Zishan's mood was a bit complicated. It was truly a pity, so many people were gone in the blink of an eye. Seeing that his wife was dejected, Yihong lightly hugged onto her. Yihong, who didn't know how to speak, could only use actions to express his feelings. It was not easy for Yihong to take the initiative. Zishan didn't say anything and lightly hugged onto Yihong. Zishan, how about you don't go? Yihong was talking about what would happen 3 days later. It would probably be even more miserable. Zishan had killed quite a lot of people that night. She was only feeling sorry for what happened today. She wouldn't change her opinion of Zishan. After leaving Yihong's embrace, Zishan faintly said, I will go. Oh, alright then. Towards Zishan's request, Yihong agreed without thinking. Of course, if Zishan crossed his bottom line, he wouldn't agree to it. For example, Zishan's request to sleep on the same bed, Yihong would definitely not agree to it. Yihong had to make some achievements first, only then would he have the face to sleep on the same bed as Zishan. Zishan let out a breath, then turned around and looked at Yihong. Pursing her lips, she said, Are you going to sleep on the bed tonight? Zishan's words had undoubtedly crossed Yihong's bottom line. Right now, Yihong was especially serious. Zishan, I will have to sternly criticize you for this. As a girl, how can you make such a request? Even if someone is going to make such a request, it should be made by me. Chapter 411. Yihong said gravely, Zishan, these few days, I have already said it countless of times, I will only do that thing with you after I become successful and famous. Otherwise, in my heart, that, you don't like me anymore. Nope, I like you. Bring it up then. Not really, I want to make a career. Forget it, I will go and look for his honor to grant me death. Yihong was a bit troubled recently. In the beginning, Zishan was still fine, and Zishan seemed to have promised me, but gradually, at night, Zishan began to talk about this serious problem, whether or not they should share a bed first before making a career. Zishan even said that she was very bored and wanted to give birth to a child to play with. I, Yihong, am a man, the words that I have said are like water that has been poured out, how can I go back on my words? However, the continuous rejections made Zishan angry. Yihong was very puzzled. In the beginning, it was you who didn't want to share a bed with me, and now, You want to get angry because we are not on the same bed? This is too ridiculous. Why did Zishan do this? It was because she had been very close to Tang Wei recently, and after Tang Wei told Zishan about her experiences, Zishan became very worried, and thus, Zishan began to test Zishan crazily. In the end, this foolish brat actually didn't have any reaction, and he wasn't even willing to say it directly. This is not a good thing. After all, Zishan didn't want Yihong and Wei Chang to be like that, and she also didn't want to follow in Tang Wei's footsteps and Sun Fang's footsteps. However, looking at the current situation, Zishan was definitely going to follow in her footsteps. Inside Leisure Bar's office, Wei Chang received Death Mage's report and said respectfully, "Your Honor, the people are here, everything has been cleaned up." "That's good, you should go back and rest early, I am tired as well." Yihua yawned, seeming to be very bored. Wei Chang smiled slightly and said, "Your Honor, have a good sleep." "Have a good sleep?" Hee hee. Yihua sneered a few times. "With these two troublesome women around, how can I possibly have a good sleep? If you have the ability, don't let me worry about you." Wei Chang knew what his honor meant, and laughed awkwardly, then disappeared from the office. Lying on the bed, Yihua once again enjoyed the feeling of being unable to sleep. "Right now, without a woman in his embrace, I feel very unnatural. In the past, I did have some small cards in Leisure Bar. If the two of you still don't come back, I am going to have a fur race." Heaven's sanctum. That night, the entire imperial palace was brightly lit. As the emperor, Zhu Qingxian did not rest. He sat on the dragon throne and waited for news. The ministers stood obediently, hoping that General Wu Ma would return victoriously. The sky gradually brightened, illuminating the pitch-black night sky. Zhu Qingxian narrowed his eyes and stared at the sky outside. When the darkness dissipated and dawn arrived, everyone realized a problem. General Wu Ma would not be coming back. "Ying Wei, go and prepare the items needed for the sacrificial ceremony. We can only rely on Jizun now." Zhu Qingshuan's eyes were bloodshot and looked terrifying. Coupled with his exhausted expression, it was as if he would go berserk at any moment. "Yes." Ying Wei replied respectfully and left the hall. Zhu Qingxian sat paralyzed on the throne and murmured, "The blood aura is really effective." Everyone was dead silent after hearing this. After a long time, Zhu Qingxian stood up, walked out of the hall, and walked towards the royal altar. The royal altar was located in the north of the imperial palace. It was an independent place. The size of the altar was about the same as the entire imperial palace. After all, Jizun was a noble existence. If they were not pious, how could Jizun help them? At that moment, all the maids in the imperial palace were called over to help. As there were too many things to prepare, Zhu Qingxian did not want to go to the back of the palace. He did not want to go to the bedroom either. He knew what the concubines would think. After a few hours, all the sacrificial items had been prepared. There were countless ancient godly items on the altar. There were even rare ancient godly items. Of course, the number was small. However, the fact that they were able to take out so many items showed how powerful the imperial palace was. "Your Majesty, everything is ready." Ying Wei bowed and said. "Then, let's begin." Zhu Qingxian walked forward and picked up a small knife. He cut his finger and let his blood drip into the groove. As the blood of the imperial palace flowed into the altar, the entire altar changed. It was as if it had color. The complicated carvings around it started to rotate slowly. Zhu Qingxian knelt on the cushion with sincerity and muttered in his heart. Following the rotation of the carvings on the ground, a complicated picture was formed. Soon after, the picture emitted a faint blue radiance. The blue radiance became brighter and brighter. It was like a blue flame, causing people's eyes to light up. Pooh! The blue radiance soared into the sky. The weapons on the altar instantly disappeared, and the blue radiance shot into the clouds and disappeared without a trace. In a small world, a man was playing the zither. The sound of the zither caused people to be intoxicated. Behind him stood two young men. Their expressions were filled with respect, and their gazes were filled with yearning. A ray of blue radiance suddenly descended. The man stopped playing the zither and said, "Go take a look." "Yes, father." The young man instantly disappeared and immediately returned. "Father, these are the godly weapons sent by Heaven's mansion." "That's good too. Forging a primordial sharp blade requires a lot of materials." "This is far from enough." The man sighed. Forging a primordial sharp blade was too difficult. "Father, it seems like Heaven's mansion has met with some trouble." The other young man said softly. It seemed like he wanted to go take a look as well. The man waved his hand and the strange zither disappeared. Xing, father will take you out for a walk." "Thank you, father." The two young men were very excited. They could finally go out. A beautiful woman walked out of the house. "Hong Tai, where are you going?" "It's time to eat." "Mother, father, take us out for a while." Hong Tai turned to look at his wife. Heaven's mansion's royal family sent a signal. Something must have happened. "I'll go take a look. It'll take 2 or 3 days. Since something has happened, and Xing should stay at home." "Mother, we're already grown up. We're not children anymore." Hong Yi pouted helplessly. "In Mother's eyes, you'll always be children." Hong Tai said solemnly. "All right, the children have grown up. It's time to go out and experience the world. The situation is urgent, so we won't be eating." After speaking, he brought his 2 sons and left the small world. The woman watched her husband and children leave. Her heart sank. She felt that something bad was about to happen. Zhu Qingxian and Ning Wei stood on the altar, waiting for the sovereign to arrive. A spiritual light flashed, and 3 people suddenly appeared in front of them. This caused Zhu Qingxian and Ning Wei to be stunned for a moment. Soon after, the 2 of them shouted out in unison, "We pay our respects to sovereign." Chapter 4:12. Zhu Qingxian didn't dare to say too much and went straight to the point. "Your Honor, my sons seem to have offended an overlord, and that overlord killed all of my sons. Furthermore, he even said that he would bathe the imperial city in blood 3 days later. I have no other choice. Would an overlord be that bored?" Hong Tai laughed lightly. It was clear that he didn't believe what Hong Tai said. Overlords were all ethereal existences, and under normal circumstances, they wouldn't even appear, and they wouldn't get involved in any disputes. Of course, that was except for the matter that happened a few years ago. That perverted skeleton did something that angered both humans and gods, and all of the overlords took revenge on him. At that time, Hong Tai and his master went to take revenge on him. However, his master died in that battle, and his master was heartbroken. However, fortunately, those monsters that killed people like flies were all killed, and the world returned to peace. Furthermore, it was under the encirclement of overlords, and right now, his strength had increased by who knows how many times. Even if an overlord were to encircle them again, a single fart from him would be able to suffocate them to death. "Your Honor, I didn't believe it at the start either. Yesterday, my general brought 100,000 troops to investigate, and he still hasn't returned yet. The odds are against him." Zhu Qingxian sighed. "That stupid son of mine actually caused such a huge trouble, and now, I have to help him clean up his mess." Hong Tai disapprovingly said, "Seeing is believing. Tell me, how did you 2 offend that overlord?" Zhu Qingxian told Hong Tai about what his son said. "So it was because of Nuwa and East Emperor's bloodline, then it makes sense." Xing, what do you 2 think about this matter?" Hong Fei asked his 2 sons to see what they thought. Hong Yi said respectfully, "Father, I feel that with father's strength, you are not inferior to that overlord at all." Overlords were also divided into different levels, and within each level, there would definitely be a difference in strength. What Hong Yi said is very true. Father's strength is boundless, and there isn't anyone in the entire universe who is as strong as father. From the looks of it, these 2 youngsters belong to the category of bootlicking. However, as a father, Hong Tai had lived in seclusion for a long time, and when he heard his son bootlicking, he couldn't help but laugh. Emperor, you can be at ease. With me here, even if a few Jizun were to come, the Jizun would still have to give me some face, let alone an unknown Jizun. Hong Tai appeared to be very confident. After all, there was an agreement between the Jizun, and the Jizun was not allowed to kill each other. Zhu Qingxian heaved a huge sigh of relief. Since the supreme martial artist had spoken, then it must be fine. Your Honor, the room and food are ready. Yes, it's been a long time since I've tasted Heaven's Sanctum's food. Your Honor, rest assured, I will definitely entertain you well for the next few days. Emperor, you are too polite, Hong Tai said politely, but his arrogant attitude was not polite at all, it was more like it was a matter of course. Hong Yi and Hong Xing, who were following behind him, also had disdainful smiles on their faces. Their birth represented that they were extraordinary. Because their father was a supreme being, they should enjoy the respect of everyone. Even if the other party was an emperor, they still had to be respectful to them. Because the son of a supreme being is not someone you can afford to offend. Oh ho, Yi Hua means, you can provoke my woman just because she is my woman? Then let me teach you what it means to not provoke someone. 3 days passed quickly. Today was Saturday, and the weather was sunny. It was suitable for the whole family to travel together. It has been a very long time since I last brought my guild members out to do something big. Back then, when I went to Ying family, I didn't manage to enjoy that kind of bloodthirsty feeling. However, this time, I hope that those deities will not disappoint me. Furthermore, he hoped that the deities would invite some powerful backers because he liked surprises. On the bed, he wore a black suit. He tied his tie and touched his hair wax. Then, he pressed his hair down and swept it back. This slicked-back hairstyle was very handsome. Yi Hua looked at himself in the mirror. I'm still as outstanding as ever. Taking out a cigarette and lighting it up, Yi Hua opened the bedroom door and slowly walked down the stairs. He saw more than 10 people standing in the lounge of the bar. They were originally chatting happily, but when they heard the unique footsteps, they all stopped talking and immediately stood properly. Your Honor. When Yi Hua appeared in front of everyone knelt down on one knee and shouted out respectfully. Yi Hua raised his hands slightly, and a formless power lifted everyone up. There were a lot of people who came today, and there were even more than the last time. There were 4 of the 7 deadly sins. Wei Cheng, Lai Gu, Yi Zizi, Zhu Tian. Underlings, Death Mage, Sun Fang, Tang Wei, Yi Ran, Wen Xia, Bai Xiaozhen, Zi Shan, Green and Red Brothers. Zhu Tian's 2 maids did not come because Zhu Tian did not give them any strength, and Dongfang Yue was still an ordinary person. However, Zhu Tian liked how ordinary they were, because ordinary people wouldn't be able to last long, and after that, they would start begging for mercy. And Zhu Tian liked how exciting they were when they were begging for mercy. Of course, there was also his sister-in-law, Qing Yutong, who was in the crowd. Brother-in-law is going to act cool again. Big sister will never be able to see brother-in-law act cool again in this lifetime. This time, including Yi Hua, the number of people who came this time reached 15. This made Yi Hua feel very happy. After all, there were only 8 people including me in the past. Right now, there are still 3 people who haven't returned, and there will be 15 people in the future. Looking at his subordinates, Yi Hua flicked away the cigarette but in his hand and said gravely, Today, I only have one request. And that is to let go of yourself. A trace of an evil smile appeared on the corner of everyone's mouth, even Zi Shan was the same. Within her body was Wei Chang's black fog, which would cause people to have a thirst for blood and become dependent on death. It would be fine if I didn't think about it, but once I thought about it, I couldn't help but want to make a move. Set off. Yi Hua shouted coldly, and the 15 people instantly disappeared from Leisure Bar. Right now, there wasn't a single person in the streets and alleys of Heavenly Province Imperial City, just like a dead city. The entire city was on high alert, and although no one knew what happened, they were sure that it was definitely something terrifying. And outside of the Imperial City, the emperor had gathered 1,000,000 soldiers. They stood on the vast and spacious prairie and waited for the arrival of the enemy, because they had to protect the homeland behind them. In the surroundings of the army, there were various kinds of high-level ancient beasts. Those ancient beasts were all being ridden by people, and those ancient beasts that were flying in the sky were also being ridden by people. There were even a few rarely seen wyverns. The wingspan of the wyverns were a few hundred meters, and when a few of them were flying together, it seemed as if they were going to cover the sky of the imperial city. Within the army, there were also many people who were wearing various kinds of mage robes. These people were all big shots from various sects and clans in Heavenly Province Imperial City. Although they did not reach the level of overlords, they were still the overlords of a region, and their strength was not to be looked down upon. Meanwhile, Zhu Qingxian and Hong Tai were standing on top of the city wall, looking into the distance, and waiting. Those people wouldn't be scared to the point that they don't dare to come, right? Hong Xing suddenly laughed. Hong Yi, who was at the side, nodded his head. With such a battle formation, even if an overlord came, he would have to be somewhat afraid. Hong Tai laughed lightly. To dare to come, I, the Supreme Overlord, have to admire you. Chapter 413. Zhu Qingxian and Hong Tai's gaze became serious. Sky Teacher and the others were the same. They really came. Huh, so few people? They aren't even enough to fill the gaps between our teeth. Hong Yi laughed. He didn't feel scared at all. It wasn't only Hong Yi who thought so, the others were the same as well. Hong Xing looked at the group of people and said disdainfully, "There is one more woman than men, and there is also a little girl. Uncle, what kind of group is this? Are they here to make a joke? But these women are incomparably beautiful." Hong Yi interrupted. This caused the surrounding people to start sizing up the group of people. "Indeed, they are not bad. Your Majesty, that woman seems to be Marquis Lord's woman, Zi Shan." Che Hongliang noticed Zi Shan and whispered into the emperor's ear. Zhu Qingxian said coldly, "No matter who they are, those who are standing over there are all enemies." "Your Honor, what do you think?" Zhu Qingxian asked respectfully. Hong Tai thought that they were some big shots, but they were just some random people. He didn't even notice any Jizun among them. After all, he had seen 70% to 80% of the Jizun. Although he hadn't seen the rest of them before, they definitely wouldn't have the same attitude as these people. Especially the man who was smoking at the very front. Why did he look like he was asking for a beating? "Your Majesty, don't worry, these people don't even need me to do anything. I reckon that they will be scared away soon." It was normal for Hong Tai to have this kind of feeling, because he didn't sense the aura of these people at all. Then, there were only two possibilities. First, these people were all monsters that were stronger than him. Second, they used some kind of method to conceal their aura in order to intimidate him. The first possibility was definitely impossible. How could these 15 people all be stronger than him? Therefore, there was only the second possibility left. They used some kind of superior method to conceal their aura. Hearing what Jizun said, Zhu Qingxian felt relieved. However, he still asked, "Your Honor, they still have 3 corpse Kuan. They are merely corpse Kuan, there is nothing to fear." This time, Zhu Qingxian was completely relieved. However, Sky Teacher who was at the side was worried. This matter isn't that simple. However, when Hong Tai looked at Yi Zizi, his gaze was a little curious. He felt as if he had seen this little girl somewhere before. She looks very similar, but her outer appearance is different. He thought to himself that he was thinking too much. Those people were all killed a few years ago. How could they appear again? Yi Zizi was indeed different from before, especially when it came to her image. Today, Yi Zizi was wearing a cute lowly outfit. She was wearing a lace black dress, mesh stockings, and a pair of small children's shoes. Her hair was tied with a big bow, and she looked like a lowly. She was also holding a small bag in her hand. She didn't look like she was here to fight, but to shop. However, it was precisely because of this attire that Hong Tai dispelled his doubts. He only felt that they looked alike. If Yi Zizi was still the same as before, this Hong Tai would definitely run away without saying a word. Yi Hua's side was standing in a very orderly manner. His sister-in-law, Qing Yutong, would naturally have to stand by her brother-in-law's side, and by her side would be the 4 people from the 7 deadly sins, and after that would be the rest of the people. Everyone knew that today was an important day, and thus, they were especially meticulous when choosing their attire. After all, they mustn't throw away his honor's face. The men were dressed in suits and leather shoes, and the women were all in gowns. There were deep V's, revealing backs, shoulders, etc. Anyway, there were all kinds of revealing. With this kind of attire, it looked like he was attending a ball and not going to bathe the imperial city in blood. However, this also meant that everyone's mentality was very good, and they were very relaxed. There are quite a lot of people here. Yi Hua looked at the 1 million soldiers in front of him and muttered. It has been a long time since I have seen such a scene, I truly miss it. Your Honor, do you want to take action now? Wei Chang said in a low voice. Yi Hua said indifferently while smoking a cigarette, don't be anxious, let's have fun today. At the same time that I, the Supreme Overlord, am going to give them hope, I am also going to give them despair. According to the previous routine, I will start killing without saying anything, it will be simple and straightforward. However, I will also lose a lot of interesting things. For example, in a situation where they thought that they were going to win, I will ruthlessly slap them in the face. Compared to the former, that kind of despair is much more interesting. Lai Gu asked curiously, then, what is hope? Zhu Tian said indifferently, right now, they are in the midst of hope. They think that just because we have fewer people, they will be able to defeat us easily. Lai Gu revealed out an expression of understanding. Yi Hua went into a slight daze. Is that so? I was still thinking of other methods just now, and I didn't expect that Zhu Tian would be able to see through my intentions. This is truly not bad. Let them feel despair first. A trace of an arc appeared on the corner of Yi Hua's mouth as he flicked the cigarette in his hand. The remaining half of the cigarette flew into the air and made a muffled sound like firecrackers exploding. Sparks scattered in the air. Everyone looked up, not knowing what the other party meant. He didn't even know what the other party's intentions were. This guy sure knows how to act cool, Hong Yi laughed in a low voice. Humph, trying to act cool in front of my father? You're really digging your own grave. Hong Xing sneered. Truly a bunch of fellows who didn't know the immensity of the heavens and earth. However, Hong Tai was much calmer. His eyes were filled with mockery, as if he was watching a clown perform. As the emperor, Zhu Qingxian seemed to be infected by this relaxed feeling. Without any pressure, he watched with the attitude of enjoying the performance. It wasn't just them. Everyone on the city wall felt the same way. There was also the million-strong army. Of course, there were also the sect leaders of the various sections. They're just a motley crew. His Majesty even called us here. What a waste of time. That's right, just give the order to kill them. Perhaps, His Majesty wanted to enjoy the astonished expression of the other party. That's true. They thought that they were very awesome, but in the end, they discovered that in front of an overlord, this sort of awesomeness is nothing. That's right. Look at the ancient beasts on our side. That enormous dragon in the sky, what could they possibly have? A few beautiful women to put up a front? Truly laughable. When two sides fought, what they were competing on was their morale and imposing manner. Looking at the current situation, Yi Hua's imposing manner was inferior to the other parties. After all, the lineup of the other party was very strong. Even if an overlord came, he would have to be somewhat cowardly. Just as everyone was making fun of Yi Hua, a boundless and powerful energy swept over, causing everyone to be stunned. What is this thing? It hasn't even appeared yet, and it is already releasing such a powerful pressure. Hong Tai stared at the horizon and sensed the ferocious aura. Shock could be seen in his eyes, but it wasn't to the extent of fear. Of course, this was the feeling of a powerful overlord. However, it was different for others. Chapter 4:14. Even a god would panic when faced with an unknown species, let alone an unknown object that was giving off such a strong pressure. This made everyone's scalp go numb. Your Honor, just what is this thing? Zhu Qingshuan's natural state from just a moment ago was completely gone, and his expression was one of nervousness. Wave after wave of pressure caused people to be unable to breathe. Hong Tai said indifferently, it should be some kind of powerful creature. Hong Yi and Hong Xing, who were standing at the back, seemed very normal. After all, they were the children of Supremes. They were born with a kind of immunity, as if nothing in this world could do anything to them. Some kind of creature? Zhu Qingxian murmured. The Taoist master's slightly narrowed eyes suddenly widened. This situation seemed to be described in an ancient book. The appearance of this creature brought destruction and rebirth. Its biggest characteristic was that one could feel the deep fear even before it appeared. That was a giant beast from the prehistoric times. Inferno Nether Dragon. Once this dragon appeared, not even a blade of grass would grow. This should be the Inferno Abyssal Dragon. The Celestial Master said in a deep voice. Zhu Qingshuan's expression changed drastically. The Inferno Abyssal Dragon shouldn't have appeared in Heaven's palace. Heavenly Master, are you mistaken? Zhu Qingxian questioned because this was simply impossible. The Celestial Master shook his head. If the ancient book was not wrong, this was the characteristic of the Inferno Abyssal Dragon. Zhu Qingxian gasped for air, then turned to Jizun and asked, Your Honor, this raging Inferno Nether Dragon? Of course I have heard of the raging Inferno Hades Dragon. This dragon is a prehistoric beast, and also an overlord of the prehistoric world. But don't worry, I can still deal with a raging Inferno Hades Dragon. Hong Tai said it casually, but his heart was a little heavy. Because the other party could actually order the Inferno Abyssal Dragon. This was simply unimaginable. All prehistoric beasts had their own majesty. How could they bend their bodies and listen to someone? Unless this was not the Inferno Abyssal Dragon at all. The temperature of the air was gradually rising. Zhu Qingshuan's forehead was covered in fine beads of sweat. The Celestial Master, Che Hongliang, and the others beside him were the same. Not to mention the millions of soldiers below. Their sweat had already soaked their armor, and even the sweat had flowed to the blades in their hands. After which, the sweat dripped onto the ground, causing fine dust to rise. Suddenly, 3 black dots appeared in the sky. They looked very small, like mosquitoes, but everyone was sure that this terrifying aura was coming from those 3 black dots. As the black dot got closer and closer, everyone could not help but gasp. The sage's mind was already buzzing. They really are Inferno Abyssal Dragons, and there are 3 of them. Zhu Qingxian looked towards Jizun, Your Honor, can you deal with 3 Inferno Abyssal Dragons? Nonsense, my father, don't talk about 3. Even if 30 of them come, I will still slay them with my sword. Behind him, Hong Yi spoke up for his father. This emperor really didn't know how to speak. He actually dared to question his father's strength. Hong Xing was even more disdainful. Isn't it just a 3-headed dragon? My father will be chopped into minced meat in a matter of minutes. Isn't that right, father? Hong Tai revealed a confident smile. Of course. Although this Inferno Abyssal Dragon is powerful, it is nothing in my eyes. When Hong Yi and Hong Xing heard this, their faces were filled with pride. You trash were actually scared to this extent by a 3-headed dragon. Father will show you what true strength is. However, if someone were to observe carefully, they would notice that the current Hong Tai was very solemn. That expression just now was just an act. And these 2 children were also deceiving their father with their strength. However, this was also normal. They were spoiled and thought that their father was invincible. However, there were a lot of species that not even Jizun could afford to offend. Just like what Hong Tai said just now, he could still force back 1 Inferno Abyssal Dragon, but now, there were 3 Inferno Abyssal Dragon. There was no longer any suspense. However, Hong Tai did not cower. If the enemies were to know that there was an Jizun protecting them, they would definitely not dare to make a move. Jizun was protected by a treaty. Jizun was not allowed to kill each other. With such a powerful backing, Hong Tai was not afraid in the slightest. However, I have already bragged about it. How am I going to deal with these 3 Inferno Abyssal Dragons? If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have brought them along. As the 3 Inferno Abyssal Dragons approached, the air seemed to be boiling. However, if one were to look down from the sky, wherever the 3 Inferno Abyssal Dragons passed through was instantly scorched. Every time they flapped their wings, the ground would turn into a sea of fire. There were even huge cracks on the ground. Along the way, they passed by 2 cities and a sect. Right now, the sect had already turned into a raging inferno. And this was just the flapping of those wide wings, and such a terrifying outcome was already created. This was unheard of. Roar. The 3 Inferno Abyssal Dragons' roars gathered together, instantly causing the sky to tremble. Even the heaven and earth had turned into a sea of crimson red. How could an army of 1,000,000 withstand the roars of the Inferno Abyssal Dragons? Their eardrums instantly exploded. Their skin felt as if it was being burned by the high temperature. Blisters had already appeared on their skin. However, this dragon roar was just the 3 Inferno Abyssal Dragons expressing their allegiance to the Supreme Sovereign, or perhaps they were saying, the Supreme Sovereign is the Supreme Sovereign. Imperial translation, Little Brother is here. Who does the Supreme Jizun want to deal with? When the Inferno Abyssal Dragons entered the battlefield, the flames on their bodies were gradually absorbed into their skin. At a glance, these 3 Inferno Abyssal Dragons looked exactly the same. The dragon scales on their bodies were like iron and magma, completely red. Their eyes were like blazing suns, looking down at the common people. When those blood-red wings spread out, they were 1,000 meters long. The 3 Inferno Abyssal Dragons looked like they wanted to cover the entire sky. On the other hand, the Inferno Abyssal Dragons seemed a bit small. And when those ancient beasts sensed the aura emitted by the Inferno Abyssal Dragons, they all lowered their heads and submitted. Those in the sky even directly fell down and laid on the ground motionlessly. No matter how much their masters scolded them, they did not have any reaction. The only reaction they had was that their entire bodies were trembling. Everyone on the city wall looked at the gigantic dragons in front of them and did not know what to say. Even Hong Yi and Hong Xing, who had always been arrogant, were shocked by the size of the Inferno Abyssal Dragons. This was the first time that they had seen such a gigantic dragon. If we are able to ride on the back of the Inferno Abyssal Dragons, how awesome would that be? The 3 Inferno Abyssal Dragons slowly landed on the ground, raising up a cloud of dust. Everyone felt threatened. Is this the main force of the Inferno Abyssal Dragons? If it is, then we have no chance of winning at all. We can only hope that the Jizun is here. Hong Tai was also pondering. This is most likely the entire strength of the Inferno Abyssal Dragons. This is indeed not bad, very strong. However, something surprising happened. The 3 dragons actually hugged each other, and their gigantic dragon tails intersected above their heads, forming a platform. Yi Hua and the others instantly appeared on the platform. At this moment, they were truly able to look down on the entire imperial city, as well as that despicable deity. Yi Hua materialized an ordinary wooden chair and slowly sat on it, then lit up a cigarette and said. Chapter 4:15. Won't harm you all. Everyone became speechless. Won't harm anyone? You're lying with your eyes wide open. Although everyone thought so in their hearts, no one dared to say it out, because the scene in front of them was really something that was hard to see even once in 10,000 years. The prehistoric beast Inferno Abyssal Dragon was actually hugging onto the other party like an obedient baby. Its legs were supporting its huge body, and its claws were tightly holding onto the other party's body. How sharp were the claws of the Inferno Abyssal Dragon? The scene was enough to prove that the claws directly pierced through the other party's indestructible dragon scales and pierced into the other party's flesh. Bright red blood flowed out from the wound, but this was only to hold the other party's body in place. Everyone was shocked by the scene in front of them. They didn't know what words to use to describe the scene in front of them. Just who are those people on top of the dragon? Just who are they? Hong Tai laughed lightly. I thought that the other party would directly attack us, but it turns out that the other party didn't even have the intention to do so. From the looks of it, the other party also knows of my existence, which is why they didn't dare to act rashly. Lord Father, your prestige has frightened them. Hong Yi revealed out a confident smile. Apart from being shocked, he also felt fortunate that he was born in Sovereign's family. Hong Tai said faintly, I am naturally able to suppress them. Emperor, you should be at ease now, right? At ease. Right now, Zhu Qingxian had placed all of his hopes on Sovereign. Seems like Sovereign is still very afraid of me. If not, why didn't such a powerful prehistoric beast attack us? Yi Hua expressed, what do you know? Do you know what is called acting cool? You all are standing on top of the city wall, while I am sitting on top of the dragon. The difference between us is immediately pulled apart. In actuality, all of these are just small scenes. However, being able to admire the astonished expressions of those deities, Yi Hua felt rather comfortable in his heart. What I did in the past was wrong, I had to do this every time before attacking, and my status would instantly rise. Thinking about how I stood on top of Lai Gu in the past, Yi Hua felt very low. A bone standing on top of another bone, that scene is truly a bit unsightly. Those are all dark history that must be erased. Qin Yutong stood at her brother-in-law's side, and she felt that compared to the time when she went to Ying family, these people were all high and mighty deities, and brother-in-law was able to suppress the arrogance of these people just by casually bringing 3 dragons over. However, the purpose of summoning 3 giant dragons was just to build a high platform. What a pretentious act. No wonder he was her brother-in-law, who had the syndrome of acting cool after smoking. He was standing next to her. Her sister and Baiji were so stupid that they missed this scene twice in a row. If you are here, you can think whatever you want. With brother-in-law's temperament, he will still spoil you. You guys just have to go against brother-in-law. This baby is much smarter. I really love brother-in-law. Moi, little sister-in-law will give you a spanking ying. I reckon that if Yi Hua were to ask Qin Yutong to come and serve him in his bed right now, Qin Yutong would probably get off in an instant. Using Qin Yutong's words, in this lifetime, it would be fine as long as you hug onto brother-in-law's thigh, and don't worry about anything else. And when Qin Yutong's system saw this scene, it was also intoxicated. He could brag about this for the rest of his life in the system world. 7 deadly sins were already used to it, but I feel that it is different from before. His honor's way of handling things is more detailed. Tang Wei, Sun Fang, and the 3 celebrities were also very shocked. However, they quickly controlled their emotions. After all, they had experienced the incident at Ying family. However, the Green and Red brothers were completely in a state of shock. This scene is too mystical to the point that they feel as if they are dreaming. It was normal for the 2 brothers to have this kind of thought. Some things need to be digested slowly. Facing such a big scene, the Green and Red brothers were still a bit unable to control themselves. This time, Yi Hua had also planned to let these newcomers experience the world. It would be beneficial for them in the future. Zi Shan, who was in the group, seemed to be calm, but in her heart, she was very excited. The people below her were all members of the royal family, and in front of them, I am completely unable to raise my head. Furthermore, I was even forcefully brought into the harem by Ho Xuelin. To a woman who had no one to rely on, this was the most sorrowful thing. Provoking the royal family was equivalent to committing suicide. However, even the royal family that was high and mighty in the past was currently looking at her while trembling with fear. This kind of feeling is incomparable. Zi Shan secretly took a peek at his honor, who was sitting on the wooden chair. All of this is bestowed upon me by this man. In Zi Shan's heart, his honor is a complicated person. Sometimes, it seems like he cares about others, but the way he cares about others is indeed very strange. Take me and Yi Hong for example, after all kinds of deaths, after all kinds of touching, and finally, together with me. Thinking back to the beginning, it seems like his honor had already planned everything from the very beginning. Those restrictions of distance, restrictions of time, and me and Yi Hong were firmly controlled by him. His honor is truly a man who is neither good nor evil. It is fortunate that I did not get fancied by him. Being together with this kind of man is very stressful. I truly admire those two madams. In the end, Yi Hong is still the best. Although she is a bit foolish, she is sincere towards me and cares for me in every possible way. This point alone is enough. Yi Hua suddenly thought of something and slapped onto the armrest of the chair. This caused the heart of Yi Hua's subordinate to sink. It can't be that Yi Hua is unsatisfied with something, right? Yi Hua immediately bowed down to express his apology. This action of Yi Hua's caused the people below to be dumbfounded. What is going on? Lord Father, look, all of their faces are filled with fear. Hong Xing laughed in a low voice. This scene caused everyone to laugh. Hong Yi laughed, they are definitely frightened by Lord Father. Hong Tai remained silent. The man who was sitting down just now seemed to have said something, and then, the people around him became terrified. This meant one thing. These subordinates of his are either extremely fearful of him, or extremely respectful of him. In actuality, it is both. Yi Hua let out a light sigh. I forgot to bring Ali over, this is a rare opportunity. I wanted to temper my subordinates, but I forgot to temper my child. Ali is almost 3 years old, it is about time for her to experience such a scene. Your Honor, subordinate can go and bring little Honor over. Wei Cheng said respectfully. The people at the side let out a sigh of relief. I thought that His Honor was going to flip out, but it turns out that it was because of little Honor. Yi Hua wrinkled his brows, seemingly considering whether or not it would work. Zhu Tian said respectfully, Your Honor, for you to go and fetch little Honor, this is out of a father's longing for his child, and it does not mean that Your Honor has admitted defeat. What Zhu Tian said is right, it is perfectly normal for Your Honor to want to see his child. Furthermore, it has been half a month since Your Honor last saw little Honor, I reckon that little Honor misses Your Honor a lot. Wei Cheng persuaded lightly. When a husband and wife quarrel, the child is the most pitiful. Yi Hua missed Ali a lot too. It has been more than a month since he last saw Ali, and wasn't it all because of those two foolish women? Wei Cheng, go and fetch the child over. Tell him that I miss my child, and that I will bring the child over to stay with me for a week. After that, I will send the child back. For the sake of teaching his daughter such a lesson, Yi Hua took the initiative to go and fetch the child. Chapter 4:16. Speak properly. Yi Hua instructed. Everyone smiled in their hearts. His Honor truly has a sharp mouth but a sponge's heart. In actuality, even though His Honor wanted to die, he just couldn't let go of his face. Wei Cheng's disappearance made the people on the deity's side very puzzled. Why did one of the deities suddenly leave? What is he doing? He couldn't have scared one away, right? Hong Yi sneered. I haven't even started fighting, and one of the deities was already scared away. Hong Xing laughed, he only scared one away. I thought that he would scare everyone away. All right, the two of you, speak less and observe the situation more. Hong Tai reprimanded gravely. These two children have been spoiled by their mother, they don't even have the slightest bit of eyesight. Are the deities planning to leave? It is evident that they are preparing for something. Seeing that their father suddenly got angry, Hong Yi and Hong Xing didn't dare to speak anymore. Emperor, let your army retreat first. Even if they were to go up there, it would be a waste of time. Hong Tai said faintly. When one's strength has reached this level, the army would no longer be of any use. Zhu Qingxian thought so too, just that without Ji's order, he didn't dare to retreat the army, if not, the deities would misunderstand. Yi Hua didn't say anything as he watched the deities' army retreat. After all, I have to get rid of the deities' main force first. There is still a Ji who participated in the encirclement and annihilation operation back then. Some enmity, I still have to take revenge. My luck sure is not bad. Within Voidless Realm. The empress moved. Wang Feng was burned down by her daughter, causing Dong Huang Baiji to feel both angry and helpless. Yihua could only choose another mountain to be the king's palace. The reconstruction work was still in progress. Within these 2 months, 2 vicious incidents had happened, causing Dong Huang Baiji to feel very depressed. Thinking about it, Voidless Realm was peaceful in the past, but ever since I met Yihua again, bad things happened one after another. I am truly an unlucky fellow. Within the courtyard, Qingye and Dong Huang Baiji sat in a pavilion and rested. These few days, they have been very busy, and now, they can finally rest. Meanwhile, Dong Huangli was hiding not far away and was secretly observing her mother's expression. Knowing that she had done something bad, Dong Huangli was scared to death, scared that her mother would smack her butt. Qingye sipped the tea and said, Baiji, Ali is still young, don't blame her. She is already almost 3 years old, she is still young. Don't bother about her, let her know her mistake, and in the future, she won't act recklessly. Dong Huang Baiji said petulantly. Ever since her daughter started following Yihua, her daughter's personality had somewhat changed. He used to be such a well-behaved child. Look at him now, he even knows how to fight. What would happen when he grew up? Wouldn't he take off? Qingye laughed involuntarily. If you want to blame someone, blame Yihua, for indiscriminately teaching a child. I also want to blame him, but he didn't come. Dong Huang Baiji pouted her mouth. You can go back and admit your mistake. Then let's go together. Qingye rolled her eyes at Dong Huang Baiji, then flicked her hair. I'm not going back to apologize. I won't go back either. After hearing what Qingye said, Qingye smiled helplessly. Rubbing onto her bulging tummy, I feel that this is not bad. Although Yihua isn't by my side, at least my son is by my side. With a vibed sound, Wei Chang's figure appeared. Hello, lady boss. Wei Chang bowed slightly and said respectfully. Seeing that Wei Chang suddenly appeared, to be honest, Qingye and Dong Huang Baiji felt delighted in their hearts. Yihua definitely wants face, so he didn't come and asked his subordinate to come down and fetch him. Should I agree to it or not? TSK, he doesn't have any sincerity at all. Dong Huangli, who was hiding at the side, also felt delighted in her heart. I feel that Uncle Wei didn't come to fetch her mom, but rather, he came to fetch me. Hurry up and fetch Ali, if not, Ali is going to be frozen to death by her mom. Wei Chang, what's the matter? Qingye put on a straight face and asked while putting on an act. Right now, Qingye was thinking if she should give Yihua a way out of this embarrassing situation. Wei Chang said with a slight smile, Lady boss, the boss misses you too a lot. Wei Chang. I want to kill you. When did I ever say such a thing? In actuality, Wei Chang was just following his honor's instructions. Sure enough, upon hearing their husband's inner thoughts, Qingye and Dong Huang Baiji's beautiful faces gradually loosened up, and a trace of redness could even be seen on their faces. To actually let his subordinate pass on such a message, Yihua, you are too shameless. Looking at the expressions of the two madams, Wei Chang felt that he had more or less paved the way. However, his honor misses the child even more. Qingye, Dong Huang Baiji, Wei Chang was clearly here to bring the child back, not to bring them back. The favorable impression that just sprouted within Dong Huang Baiji and Dong Huang Baiji immediately disappeared. Uncle Wei, Ali misses daddy too. Dong Huang Li immediately knew that her daddy was thinking of her. Dong Huang Li immediately ran out and jumped onto Wei Chang's body. Dong Huang Li refused to let go of Wei Chang's body and even said in a low voice, Uncle Wei, quickly bring Ali away, Mommy's temper has been very bad recently. Looking at her daughter's reaction, Dong Huang Baiji couldn't help but sigh. The child that I raised painstakingly is now even more clingy to daddy. Lady boss, the boss said that he will bring Ali back to play for a week, and after that, he will send her back. Wei Chang explained. Chapter 417. Just as Ali was in a daze, Yihua asked faintly, what is their attitude? Wei Chang paused for a moment, then said in a low voice, your madams miss his honor very much, and they wanted me to pass their message to his honor. If Qingye and Donghuang Baiji were to hear this, they would definitely go berserk. When did this madam say such words? Wei Chang, you better explain yourself clearly. After Yi Hua heard what Yi Hua said, he felt great in his heart. At least you all know how to talk. If you all obediently come back and admit your mistake, I will let bygones be bygones. Dong Huangli came back to her senses and thought to herself, Uncle Wei is so smart. Yeah, Mama misses Papa so much. Even in my dreams, I call Papa's name. Dong Huangli wasn't lying, she had indeed called out to Yi Hua. However, she wasn't calling out to Yi Hua intimately. Instead, she was calling out to Yi Hua. Yi Hua, you bastard. Ha ha ha. Yi Hua suddenly let out a loud laughter of joy. This caused the deities below to be puzzled. Why is he so happy? Could it be that he has gone mad? Actually, the gods down below were quite confused about this situation. That person had suddenly disappeared, and in less than the time it took to brew a cup of tea, he had returned with a child in his arms. The moment the child appeared, the man was overjoyed. It seemed that the child was very important to him. Father, this child should be his weakness. Hong Xing said. If we capture this child, they won't dare to do anything, Hong Yi said. Actually, both of them were expressing their own views and ideas, thinking that this would make their father feel gratified. However, Hong Tai did not praise him at all. Papa, who are they? Dong Huangli jumped down from her father's embrace and stood at the edge of the platform that was built at the dragon's tail. Looking down, her legs felt numb. Yi Hua stood up slowly and said faintly, they are the people who bullied Ali's mama. Is it those people from a few days ago? Dong Huangli asked curiously. Yi Hua nodded his head. Dong Huangli's cheeks puffed up as she said angrily, Daddy, they are all bad people, and they wanted to beat Mommy up. It is fortunate that Ali chased them away, so Papa came here today to avenge Ali and Mama. Yes, Ali also wants to vent for Mama. Yi Hua was very happy with his daughter's attitude. Fortunately, I didn't follow their temperament. Yi Hua raised his hand, indicating to Wei Chang that he could start. Wei Chang coldly stared at the gods in front of him and shouted, which one of you can be in charge? All the gods sucked in a breath of cold air. It was finally here. Zhu Qingxian glanced at the supreme being beside him. The latter said lightly, Speak. I'm the Emperor of Heaven's Sanctum. Who are you? Zhu Qingxian shouted. Wei Chang shouted out, His honor is here to settle the score, call your crown prince out. Sure enough, it was because of the crown prince. Zhu Qingxian said in a low voice, Supreme Being, it's possible that this Supreme Being is also interested in the bloodline of Dong Huang and Nuwa, and wants to kill my son to vent his anger. Don't worry, I'm here. They wouldn't dare to do anything to you. Hong Tai said indifferently. Even if I were to die, Yi Hua wouldn't do anything to me. Zhu Qingxian called out, What crime did he commit, please tell me. Yi Hua indicated to Wei Chang to back down, then said in a low voice, What's the matter? He even dares to take liberties with this sovereign's woman, you guys are so daring. Didn't you still kill hundreds of my sons? Zhu Qingxian can't accept this, just because I took liberties with your woman, you want to kill my sons? Yi Hua sneered, What does it have to do with you that I killed your sons? Everyone present went into an uproar. I've seen unreasonable people before, but I've never seen someone this unreasonable. You killed someone else's son, and you still say that it has nothing to do with you? What does it have to do with me? Meanwhile, Zhu Qingxian was quite angered by Yi Hua's words. Killing my sons, and you still say that it has nothing to do with me? This is too arrogant. Your honor, you have to uphold justice for me. Zhu Qingxian could only seek help from the supreme being beside him. This person is too arrogant, and I don't have any way to deal with him. Hong Tai nodded his head, then slowly rose into the sky and stood at the same height as Yi Hua. Which supreme being are you? Hong Tai asked gravely. You want to interfere with my matters? Yi Hua asked faintly. Hong Tai didn't expect the other party to not give him any face. In that case, he didn't need to give him any face either. Since I am protecting them, I naturally have to interfere with their matters. That crown prince took liberties with Supreme Being's woman. He is indeed in the wrong, but Supreme Being, you have also killed the Emperor's 100 sons, so we should be even, right? Hong Tai still wanted to retreat without a fight. After all, these 3 inferno abyssal dragons were no joke. Yi Hua wished that he could kill this Supreme Being right now. However, if he were to kill this Supreme Being right now, they would no longer have any hope. I might as well let them fantasize for a while longer. That was merely a warning notice. To think that you lowly deities would dare to provoke my woman, you must be thinking that your lives are too smooth, right? What do you want then? Hong Tai said coldly. Yi Hua said faintly, kill. Daddy, you can do it, the little fellow cheered for her father. Those who are standing in front of her father are all bad people. Hong Tai took a look at Dong Huangli and began thinking about how to avoid a fight. How about this, we will send out our subordinates to fight one-on-one, the best of 3. If we win, you all will retreat. If you all win, I will retreat. Chapter 418. The Hong brothers who were on top of the city wall had deep contempt on their faces. Does the other party not have anyone else, or did they send a woman out to die? What a pity for such a beautiful woman. Her clothes are truly very alluring when she wears them, so big, so deep. Emperor, who do you want to send out? Hong Tai asked. This was the best way to avoid a battle. After all, these 3 inferno abyssal dragons were not to be trifled with. Father, why don't you let your son go out to fight? Hong Yi, who was at the side, asked. If I don't show my face in such a situation, it doesn't seem right. I can also let others see my strength. Hong Tai still didn't know what his son wanted to do, he just wanted to be in the limelight. Father, your son is also willing to go out to fight. Hong Xing cupped his hands and said. As the child of an overlord, he enjoyed different treatment from the moment he was born. Right now, he could be said to be half a step into the ranks of overlords. If he is fast, in less than 10,000 years, there will be 2 overlords. This is simply rushing to die. Tang Wei is just a girl, she is easy to bully. If Wei Chang didn't have any confidence, would he let Tang Wei go out to fight? To put it bluntly, even if Tang Wei fought against an overlord, she would still have some chance of winning. Therefore, to say that Tang Wei went out to fight was obviously bullying. The reason why Hong Tai couldn't see through the strength of Yi Hua and the others was because everyone was stronger than him. This was something that he didn't expect. Although the 7 sins all addressed Yi Hua as a supreme overlord, Yi Hua wasn't very clear about his own strength. If one were to insist on an explanation, the current 7 sins were all supreme overlords, and I am already above them. Because I don't have any other titles, I can only call them supreme overlord. Back then, the 7 sins were able to team up against all the overlords, which meant that they already had the strength of an overlord. Needless to say, their strength had already reached an abnormal level. However, Wei Chang was able to easily create a supreme overlord team. Just like the Green and Red brothers, they instantly leveled up from 0 to 100. Therefore, you don't even know what kind of team you are facing. This is a team that is using a cheating device. If you don't give face, Tang Wei alone is enough. The current Tang Wei was no longer that immature university student. Facing such a scene, she was completely able to stay calm. Yi Hua also saw this. He hoped that everyone in the team would be able to take charge, that way, he would be able to relax a bit. He was suspected of slacking off. At this moment, Zhu Qingxian was hesitating about who to send out. Although Jizun's son had requested to fight, Jizun did not respond. It seemed like she wanted to see how strong the other party was. Tang Wei stood on the vast plain. Although her delicate body seemed petite, she gave off an extraordinary feeling. For a woman to be able to have such an attitude in such an occasion, the other party was impressed, but also felt that it was a pity. Who dares to fight with me? Tang Wei shouted coldly. This is my first time performing in front of his honor. I definitely cannot make any mistakes. Losing face for myself is a small matter, but losing face for his honor is a big matter. Therefore, not only did they have to win, they had to win cleanly. Everyone heard this shout clearly, and the deities' faces darkened. They were actually being looked down upon by a woman. Your Majesty, allow me. A handsome man walked out from the sex group. He wore a simple white robe and didn't wear any decorations. He seemed fresh and refined, as if he didn't belong to the secular world. Zhu Qingxuan's lips curled into a smile. Then I'll have to trouble Sect Master. Your Majesty is too polite. It is the duty of us cultivators to eradicate evil. Wen Lu seemed to be extremely respectful, but don't be fooled by this kind of facade. Although he seemed to be respectful to the emperor, it was obvious that he wanted to show off in front of Jizun and obtain a good impression of him. Zhu Qingxian was overjoyed. Good. This emperor will wait here for Sect Master Wen's triumphant return. Wen Lu will definitely do his best. After he finished speaking, he leaped and flew towards Tang Wei. The Hong brothers pouted their mouths. He really knows how to flatter. Lightly landing on the ground, Wen Lu carefully sized up the woman in front of him. In terms of appearance, this woman was a rare beauty, but from her clothes, she didn't seem to be very powerful, just like those women in the brothels. But from her aura, she could be considered a heroine among women. Wen Lu, Mountain Sea Sect Master. Tang Wei paused for a moment. Do I have to say this in a fight? However, I do have to announce my name on TV. Tang Wei, Longmen University's fourth-year student. Tang Wei could only say this. His honor didn't establish any sect, and he doesn't have a position either. Uncle Wei has a position, one of the 7 sins. Wen Lu was a bit surprised. This girl is actually just a student, and I am the sect master. Even if I win, my face won't be glorious. This woman is still a student, seems like the other party doesn't have many people. Hong Yi continued to mock the other party. The surrounding royal family members were speechless. This person is relying on the fact that his father is Jizun. He is insufferably arrogant, and has never suffered a loss before. Only after suffering a loss will you know that the cruelty of the world is not something that you can understand. Yihua carried his daughter and sat back onto the wooden chair, then asked, how many moves do you think Tang Wei will need to win? This is hard to say. Little Green, tell me. Yihua asked. Big Brother Green was terrified. How would I know? I can only guess, replying to your honor, 3 moves should be enough. Lai Gu, tell me. Yihua continued to ask. Lai Gu rubbed onto his chin and said lightly, your honor, 2 moves. Aunt Tang, 1 move should be enough. Dong Huangli, who was in Yihua's embrace, suddenly said. Dong Huangli seemed to be very confident in Tang Wei. Yihua rubbed onto his daughter's head. Wei Cheng, what do you think? What your honor said is very true, 1 move should be enough. Ali said that Aunt Tang is very formidable. Dong Huangli said happily. Daddy, hurry up and praise Ali. Ali is already prepared. Yihua said indifferently, that's good, if you still want to use 2 moves, I will have to criticize you. Wei Cheng bowed slightly, indicating that your honor is worrying too much. If those deities were to hear the conversation between Yihua and Yihua, they would definitely say that Yihua was boasting shamelessly. That is the famous sect master Wen. His strength is incomparably formidable, and if he were to cultivate for another 10,000 years, he would definitely become another powerful Jizun. You actually said 3 moves, 2 moves. Even 1 move. Where did your confidence come from? Sect Master Wen should be able to deal with Tang Wei in 1 move. On the stage, Wen Lu took out his weapon. Wen Lu's weapon was a very thin long sword that looked like an embroidery needle. However, the moment this weapon appeared, a powerful fluctuation immediately gushed out from it, causing the sky to change color and the clouds to surge. This is Pear Blossom, an ancient godly artifact. Bring out your weapon. After finished speaking, the aura coming out from Wenlu's body completely exploded out, and his eyes became as deep as the stars. It was as if he was the supreme being under the common people, and everyone else was just an ant. Chapter 419. The other sect masters were all astonished. This Wenlu actually has such a cultivation. No wonder he dared to volunteer. Hong Tai also revealed a trace of astonishment. This person has already touched the doorstep of the Overlord realm. In time to come, he will be able to take half a step into the ranks of the Overlords. In the near future, he will also become an Overlord. As for how long this near future would take, it might be tens of thousands of years. After all, it is not so easy to become an Overlord. The various deities felt Wenlu's aura and revealed a look of joy. There is hope, Sect Master 1 will definitely be able to win. Is there even a need to say that? This is simply using a sledgehammer to crack a nut, even I would be able to do it. Using a sledgehammer to crack a chicken, what a waste. Wenlu's aura ignited the fire of hope in the originally depressed deities. Before the battle even started, there were already people who were celebrating their first victory. Yi Hua looked at these salted fishes and laughed lightly. Laugh, laugh, you all don't have much time left to laugh. Enjoy the joy brought by the rest of your lives, despair has only just begun. On the battlefield, Wenlu's aura had already risen to the peak, to the point where he felt that he would be able to break that pure white jade neck of the other party with a single hand. Take out your weapon. Wenlu shouted out. Facing such an aura, the other party actually remained indifferent. Either the other party came prepared, or the other party was scared silly. It should be the latter. Furthermore, the other party did not even take out her weapon. It would give off a feeling that the victory was unfair. What was there to show off about winning against a woman, let alone a woman who did not have a weapon? Tang Wei's expression did not change at all. The biting cold aura blew onto her body, causing her beautiful hair to flutter, and the dress that she wore on her body to flutter. My hands are the best weapons. Tang Wei clenched her fist and slowly spat it out. Hands? The various deities all went into a daze for a moment, then burst out laughing. This woman is crazy. Boasting shamelessly. To actually use her hands to fight against a sect master who possesses an ancient godly weapon, this is undoubtedly courting death. This is truly a woman who uses her hands to achieve her dreams. Wenlu's expression slightly changed. This woman is truly too arrogant to actually say such arrogant words. She is simply not putting me in her eyes at all. Fine. Today, I shall let you experience what true strength is. The moment he finished speaking, Wenlu's aura increased explosively, and the pear flower in his hand emitted a dazzling white light. Heart-destroying sword. The surrounding temperature instantly rose, as if all the water molecules had been sucked dry. It was as if he was in a desert. A beam of sword light swept over, bringing with it a momentum that could overturn the world, as if it wanted to crush everything in the world. This sword had reached the state of being one with the sword. To Wenlu, displaying such a sword art was a kind of enjoyment. It was a beautiful melody, and it was also the best moment to comprehend sword arts. At this moment, time seemed to stop, and only the sword was in his eyes. The gods all held their breaths when they saw the Heart Destroyer sword technique being used right at the start of the battle. This was the power of a sect leader. The mountain and sea sect's reputation was indeed well deserved. With just this battle, the mountain and sea sect's reputation would definitely sweep through the entire heavenly palace, suppressing all the heroes. At this moment, the grandmasters were feeling a little regretful. This was a free-point question. They had hesitated earlier on. If they had been more decisive and won this battle, their sects would have welcomed a new spring. At this moment, no one would care about what Tang Wei was thinking. Under such a powerful move, she would definitely turn into dust. It would not be difficult for Wenlu to win. Tang Wei's beautiful eyes stared at the menacing sword aura as she pushed her right leg backwards. Bang! The ground was immediately split apart by the high heels under Tang Wei's feet, and her right fist slowly tightened as she placed it on her waist. A black aura slowly emitted out and condensed on Tang Wei's fist. At this moment, Tang Wei's eyes were pitch black, without any emotion. As Tang Wei condensed her power, the ground beneath her feet gradually collapsed, and the black light on her body became more and more intense, like a black flame. It was unimaginable. Tang Wei's actions caused the smiles of the gods to freeze on their faces. What was going on? In that instant, Tang Wei's right foot stomped down once again. Boom! Boom! The area within a circumference of 100 miles seemed as if there was a magnitude 9 earthquake, and the ground shook intensely. The ground seemed as if it was split open by the hands of a giant, and cracks appeared on the ground. And from Yi Hua's perspective, those cracks extended all the way to the horizon. The imperial city immediately activated its defensive state, otherwise, it would be destroyed by this kick. This was Tang Wei's true strength. It could be said. This was the first time in history that she had gone all out to fight. After all, Earth was their home. Even if they were to fight, they would try their best to suppress their strength. Not only Tang Wei, everyone was the same. But it was different here, they could fight with all their might. All the gods were dumbfounded. A single stomp could actually produce such a powerful destructive force. Was this still a woman? This was simply a humanoid monster, the king of destruction. Compared to Wen Lu's heart-destroying sword, Tang Wei's kick was even more shocking. As a Jizun, even Hong Tai was shocked. This woman actually possessed such a powerful strength, and he actually couldn't tell. This was clearly half a step into the realm of Jizun. Hong Tai raised his head and looked at the dozen or so people on top of the Inferno Abyssal Dragon. Emperor Zhu Qingxuan's mind went blank. He originally thought that a woman was nothing much. Wen Lu was the sect master of the Mountain and Sea sect. With him here, it would definitely be foolproof. But, however, Tang Wei's kick had completely destroyed the confidence of the gods. Yi Hua was very satisfied with Tang Wei's actions. This kick was good. Not only was it shocking, it was also stepping on the faces of these gods, letting them know that you, Tang Wei, are not to be trifled with. Wei Chang looked at his woman with admiration in his eyes. As expected of the woman that he had taken a fancy to, this aura was similar to his demeanor back then. However, when Tang Wei stepped on it, the high heels under her feet did not break in the slightest. It was truly miraculous. Following Tang Wei's stomp, her right fist suddenly struck out. Primordious collapse. It could be said that the kick just now was to pave the way for this punch, the so-called borrowing force, to unleash an even more powerful force. When this punch was thrown out, it created a huge sonic boom. A black evil aura coiled around Tang Wei's fist, like a black sun. The boundless spiritual energy swept out like a storm. The originally crimson-red sky instantly darkened. The astral wind whistled, causing pain to his face. Boom! The two forces immediately collided, and a loud sound resounded through the clouds like a furious roar. Mountains collapsed one after another, and a resplendent light shot up into the sky, scattering the black clouds. A ferocious shockwave spread out in all directions. When it touched the barrier of the imperial city, the entire barrier trembled, as if it was about to collapse. Chapter 420. All of the deities maintained a dumbfounded look on their faces. Some of their mouths were slightly opened, and some of their mouths could even be stuffed with a ham sausage. This kind of reaction was just like discovering that the other party was a man after an orgasm. Unbelievable. This woman is so terrifying. She actually survived under sect leader Wen's attack. This is simply a miracle. However, many people noticed that something was amiss. Sect leader Wen's ancient godly equipment disappeared. On the field, Wen Lu's expression was very unusual, and Tang Wei was standing there gracefully, as if she wasn't the one who attacked sect leader Wen. Impossible. This is impossible. Wen Lu murmured. The scene just now replayed in his mind. The other party's fist was directly coming towards him. No. Accurately speaking, it was coming towards the tip of his sword. At that time, he was still overjoyed in his heart. The woman who overestimated herself actually used her fist to attack my ancient godly equipment. However, what happened next made him astonished. Before that little embroidered fist even touched his sword, his pear blossom sword started to tremble violently and started to dissipate from the tip of the sword. Then, the entire sword turned into powder. An ancient godly equipment actually turned into powder under a fist, unless it was an overlord. Otherwise, how could an overlord destroy an ancient godly equipment with just his physical body? Wen Lu slowly raised his head and asked in a low voice, "Just who are you? If I don't ask this question, I won't be able to die in peace." Tang Wei said faintly, "I am just an ordinary university student. Of course I am still His Honor's subordinate. Oh no, subordinate's wife." Hearing this answer, Wen Lu opened his eyes wide and slowly raised his head to look at the man who was sitting on the chair. Subordinate already has this kind of strength. Then what kind of strength does this subordinate have, and what kind of strength does he himself have? This is a group of demons, Wen Lu suddenly laughed. The evils we bring upon ourselves are the hardest to bear. A light breeze blew past, and Wen Lu dissipated along with his deep laughter, turning into dust. Not even his primordial spirit was left behind. It could be seen just how terrifying this punch was. This scene caused the deities to be unable to believe it, and they didn't dare to believe it. This is the Mountain Sea sect leader, one of the top 10 experts of Heaven's Mansion, and he actually couldn't even take a single punch from the other party. This is definitely impossible. The word impossible reverberated in everyone's hearts. Just a moment ago, they had been preparing to celebrate, but now they were dumbstruck, their hearts filled with fear. It was like a child fighting an adult. Everyone thought that the adult would win, but they didn't expect the child to knock down the adult. Moreover, it was a knockdown without any strength. Tang Wei, who had completed her mission, returned to the dragon's tail, then bowed slightly and said respectfully, "Your Honor." Yi Hua nodded his head and said faintly, "Not bad. It's my duty." Tang Wei appeared to be very modest. However, such modesty gave off a different feeling in the eyes of these gods. Such a powerful woman was actually so respectful to that man. It was surprising and frightening. Yi Hua waved his hand, signaling Tang Wei to return to the team. Meanwhile, Tang Wei bowed her body and retreated to the back of the team. At that moment, all the gods realized that the woman seemed to be standing at the back of the group. Then what the hell was that standing in front of him? Those sect leaders immediately changed their minds. This wasn't a freebie question, it was a freebie question. It is fortunate that I didn't go to the battle just now, if not, the one who died would be me. Your Honor, what should we do now? Zhu Qingxian asked gravely. Even the sect leader couldn't win against this woman. Hong Tai's expression sunk. I have underestimated their strength. Just where did these people come from? Hong Yi and Hong Xing, who were behind Yi Hua, didn't dare to speak anymore and instantly became obedient. Tang Wei's move just now had scared the two of them silly. As the sons of Supreme Being, their cultivation speed was indeed very fast. What other people could reach in 10,000 years, they could reach in 1,000 years. Furthermore, their strength was not much different from Yi Hua's. Thinking about how they went to request for battle just now, if Father had allowed it, the one who would have disappeared would be me. Father is still the one who is the most considerate. Hong Tai let out a sigh of relief. Right now, in this situation, anyone who goes up to fight would only be sending themselves to death. Emperor, you can be at ease. Since I said that I will protect you, I will naturally protect you. After finished speaking, Hong Tai flew out of the barrier. To him, a barrier like this was nothing. Looking at the appearance of this supreme being, Yi Hua sneered in his heart. He couldn't sit still anymore. Supreme Being, how about we spar for a bit? Standing in the sky, Hong Tai asked. Ever since I became an Supreme Being, this was the second time I felt so useless. The first time was 5 years ago, when I was fighting against those beasts. Without waiting for Yi Hua to say anything, Dong Huangli made a face at Hong Tai. You are so weak, my daddy won't spar with you. I, a dignified Supreme Being, was actually called a weak chicken by a child. However, looking at the 3 inferno abyssal dragons that were hugging each other, Hong Tai held back his anger. Until now, the one that Hong Tai was afraid of was the 3 inferno abyssal dragons, and not the 10+ people. What an idiot. Yi Hua looked at the familiar face and said, "Children usually speak the truth. If you want to spar with me, you are indeed not strong enough." Although what Yi Hua said was very light, everyone heard it. Yi Hua said it intentionally for everyone to hear. The other party's supreme being was actually disdainful, and his tone even carried a deep sense of ridicule. Everyone's heart fell into the air. Just what exactly is going to happen next? You don't think that just because you have the supreme treaty, I won't dare to do anything to you. Evidently, Hong Tai was quite angered by Yi Hua. So, Hong Tai wanted to use this treaty to protect himself, and now, he is saying that Yi Hua is relying on the treaty. He is truly shameless. Yi Hua laughed lightly, then slowly stood up. Supreme treaty? Even I don't remember how many supreme beings I have killed. You have killed a lot of supreme beings? Hong Tai's expression suddenly changed as he questioned coldly. Yi Hua felt that this show was about to end, and he wasn't interested in watching anymore. Right now, I should give them their final despair, and this supreme being will also know who I am. That's right, a lot. Yi Hua took out a cigarette and lit it up, then looked at Hong Tai with narrowed eyes. I really like this expression of Hong Tai's. Hong Tai suddenly laughed out. Do you think that you can scare me? Do you really think that supreme beings can be scared? As Hong Tai spoke, the supreme being's might that was being emitted out from Hong Tai's body. In a battle between experts, aura was very important, especially for supreme beings. The one with the strongest aura would definitely win. Meanwhile, the deities below only saw the conversation between the two, and didn't hear the content of the conversation. Chapter 421. However, this action once again gave the deities hope. When an overlord makes his move, it is no joke. He will be able to kill all of you in an instant. A few minutes ago, they thought so too, and right now, they started to fantasize about winning. However, if they lose, they would not even have the strength to resist. Yi Hua said indifferently, "Do you really not recognize us anymore?" Hong Tai's gaze became serious as he sized up everyone. Other than that little loli with a ponytail, he really did not have any impression of the others. Of course, Hong Tai did not have any impression of them. In the past, Yi Zizi also looked like this, and the others all appeared with their original bodies. Just who are you all? Hong Tai asked gravely and put on a defensive posture. Yi Hua felt that he had to give some hints. If not, with the other party's intelligence, it would be very hard for him to guess. A ray of red light could be seen flashing past Yi Hua's eyes. Although it was just a flash, Hong Tai still saw it. I will never forget that pair of red light until now. Over 100 overlords gathered on that day. And it was all for the sake of encircling and annihilating 8 people. The situation on that day was incomparably tragic. Tens of overlords fell one after another, and only then did the overlords exterminate all of the overlords. And the boss of the overlords, that skeleton. That pair of empty eye sockets was also shining with the same kind of red light. Hong Tai's lips began to tremble as he pointed at Yi Hua and said in panic, You didn't die. Hee, do you think that I am so easy to kill? Yi Hua sneered. Upon thinking about the situation on that day, an overflowing anger emerged. The heavens seemed to have felt Yi Hua's anger, and immediately, a rumbling sound rang out, and thunder sounded out from the clear sky. No wonder I felt a sense of familiarity when I looked at that little girl. So it was her. They actually dared to not die. After paying such a painful price, in the end, everything became bubbles. Hong Tai seemed to be about to collapse. And this time, he felt that their strength had risen again. In the past, they were able to fight against a group of outstanding heroes with the strength of 8 people, and right now, they were only able to fight against a single person. Hong Tai no longer cared about his face. He turned around and shouted at his 2 sons, "Run!" However, there was no trace of his sons on the city wall. Father, father, Lai Gu and Wen Xia could be seen grabbing onto one person each. Lai Gu had become smarter now. Knowing that, he knew that his honor would be able to praise him. Well done. Yihua said faintly, then lightly stroked onto his daughter's head. Dong Huangli yawned and gradually fell asleep. Although Yihua wanted to educate his daughter, there were some things that she could not come into contact with yet. After all, his daughter was still young right now, and there were some dark things that she would have to experience by herself in the future. Yutong, carry Li, Yihua said faintly. N. Qin Yutong carried Dong Huangli into her embrace and felt that she was digging out her brother-in-law's secrets. The deities below were all dumbfounded. Just a moment ago, the Supreme Being was about to display his might. Why did the situation suddenly change? He became so panic-stricken, to the extent where he couldn't help but scream out. How could a Supreme Being be in this state? Moreover, even the child of a supreme martial artist was captured. All the gods realized the fact that they had no hope at all. All that was left was deep despair. Release my son. Hong Tai had a panicked look on his face as he roared towards Yihua. The demeanor of an overlord was thrown to the back of his head. Yihua took a puff of the cigarette, then said faintly, in order to save your two sons, what are you willing to pay? Anything is fine. Hong Tai hurriedly shouted. When Hong Yi and Hong Xing heard their father's reply, tears streamed down their cheeks. Father will still save us, let's use our lives to exchange for them then. Yihua said faintly. I wonder how an overlord views familial love. In Yihua's eyes, supreme beings were a group of sanctimonious people. For the sake of benefits, they were willing to give up everything. Their lives were eternal, and to them, having a child was just a process of cultivation. However, among humans, Yihua had seen some news before. For the sake of their children, they were willing to give up everything. There was a mother who actually lifted a small car and rescued her child. This made Yihua very surprised. This is the power of a mother. Looking at their father's struggling expression, Hong Yi and Hong Xing's hearts sunk. Big Brother Green suddenly said in a low voice, if it was me, I wouldn't save them. I would go back and hug my wife twice tonight, hug 2 children next year, and then have another 2 children 18 years later. That's right, that's right. If they die, their wife would become someone else's wife, and their child would recognize someone else as his father. That would be so miserable. Little Brother Red said in a low voice. This isn't a good deal, I hate being cuckolded the most. Big Brother Red sighed. It was evident that the two of them were performing a double act to disrupt Hong Tai's train of thought. Wrong. They are trying to make Hong Tai's train of thought flow smoothly. Your life is endless, if you die like this, it wouldn't be worth it. Although Zi Shan knew that Yi Hong said that intentionally, Zi Shan still glared at the man. Why don't you give birth to a child with me? Feeling Zi Shan's gaze, Yi Hong immediately turned his face away and pretended that he didn't see anything. I really envy Big Brother, it is so good to be single. Hong Yi and Hong Xing inwardly scolded the two of them for being shameless. Father, don't listen to their nonsense. Save me. Hong Yi cried out loudly. As long as my father doesn't abandon me, I am willing to do anything. Hong Xing was choking with sobs. Father, your son will repay you properly in the future. Lai Gu pursed his lips. Who are you two going to repay? Stepfather. The two brothers were on the verge of collapse. Hong Tai was also thinking in his heart. That's right, if I die, who are you two going to repay? Looking at their father struggling more and more, the two brothers were about to go crazy. This bunch of shameless people. Yihua didn't stop them and looked at Hong Tai, who had a gloomy face. Then, can I leave? After a long while, Hong Tai let out a breath and asked gravely. In actuality, what they said was right, my life is endless, at worst, I can just give birth again in the future. If I were to die now, then I would really have nothing left. My wife slept with someone else, and my child recognized someone else as his father. I am unwilling to accept this. Hearing what their father said, Hong Yi and Hong Xing's faces turned pale. When their lives were in danger, their father still abandoned them. The two brothers had nothing left to love, and right now, the person they missed the most was their mother. When Hong Tai's subordinates heard Hong Tai's reply, they all let out a deep sigh. However, Hong Tai's choice must be respected. In the eyes of an overlord, if one doesn't look out for oneself, the heavens will destroy them. Of course you won't be able to leave. Yi Hua immediately dispelled Hong Tai's thoughts of running away. If you were to run away and leak out the news, those overlords would have two choices. First, surround and annihilate them again, just like back then. Second, hide them. Yi Hua felt that the possibility of the second choice was higher. If you are to hide, who am I going to take revenge on? As for the first choice, that would be too easy for you all to die. Furthermore, from now on, your lives are already starting to enter the countdown. Don't doubt my words, I never speak lies. Hong Tai took a look at his sons, then decided to run away without any hesitation. I must definitely inform everyone about this matter. Chapter 422. If I want to escape, you are powerless. Yi Hua sneered. There aren't many people who are able to escape from me, other than those two foolish women. He grabbed at the void and forcefully pulled Hong Tai out of the torn space. The gods below were all dumbfounded. Jizun actually abandoned them and ran away. Wasn't heaven's sanctum under the protection of Jizun? How could you run away just like that? What about us? As the emperor, Zhu Qingxian powerlessly supported himself on top of the city wall and muttered, when the blood-red light appears, the country will face a calamity. The Taoist master heaved a deep sigh of relief and supported his majesty. Your majesty, if you admit your mistake, you might still have a chance. Heavenly master, if I had listened to you back then and paid attention to this problem, this wouldn't have happened. Zhu Qingxian felt regret and despair. If he had taken Ho Shuolin seriously on the night of his clan's annihilation, and then announced the ban, his son would not have gone down. Everything that happened next wouldn't have been his fault. Your Majesty, right now, there is still a sliver of a chance to redeem the situation. Although Taoist sure felt that there was no hope, but at the very least, if he were to beg for it, there might still be a chance to turn things around. But Zhu Qingxian was the emperor. The emperor of heaven's sanctum. Even if I have to die, I will die standing, not kneel to live. Zhu Qingxian suddenly stood up straight, as if he had returned to his previous state. Although the celestial master felt sorry for the emperor's choice, he praised the emperor's attitude. The imperial family should have the dignity of the imperial family. Even if they were to be destroyed, they should not lower their heads. You devil! Let me go! Hong Tai, who was firmly confined by Yi Hua, struggled madly. However, even if Hong Tai had the strength of an overlord, in Yi Hua's hands, he was just like an ordinary person. Yi Hua said coldly, "Didn't anyone teach you before? If you do something wrong, you have to pay the price." Without waiting for Hong Tai to roar out, Yi Hua clenched his fist. As a supreme being, Hong Tai exploded into a bloody mist in midair, and even his primordial spirit exploded along with it. Everyone saw this scene. Even the supreme martial artist had fallen, so there was really no one who could stop them. All the gods knelt on the ground and prayed to the heavens for mercy, hoping for a miracle. However, just like what Yi Hua had said, a miracle was impossible. The appearance of Yi Hua's main body only represented despair. If he was weak, perhaps he would be the one kneeling, but that was absolutely impossible. Yi Hua coldly looked at the group of gods who were kneeling on the ground and shouted out gravely, "I will say it again. You can't afford to offend my woman even if you die." Upon thinking about the situation that happened that day, Yi Hua immediately became furious. If I was an ordinary person, Qingye and Baizhi would have been captured by them and would have been living a life worse than death. Fortunately, I am not an ordinary person. He did not let such a tragedy happen. Furthermore, Yi Hua wasn't like Qingye and Donghuang Baizhi. Yi Hua would never be soft-hearted. He slowly turned around and said to his subordinates, "Leave no one alive." "Yes." Everyone answered in unison. Yihua took over his daughter and carried her in his embrace, then left with his sister-in-law. After his honor left, everyone felt that their bodies had become relaxed. Yi Zizi was already a bit impatient and couldn't stop licking her lips. Wei Chang was also a bit greedy, while Lai Gu's hands were a bit itchy. Right now, Absolute Heaven was only interested in money, the more the better. His honors plan requires a lot of money, you all know that. Absolute Heaven said faintly. Lai Gu said with a smile, "Who is snatching money from you? Just take however much you want." "That's right, I am only interested in people." Yi Zizi let out a "psew" sound. Wei Chang laughed lightly. "All right, for his honors plan, all of the money will be handed over to Absolute Heaven, we will do the dirty work." Yi Zizi let out a strange laugh. "I like dirty work." Wei Chang turned his head around and looked towards the huge imperial city, then said with an ice-cold gaze, "Let's start working." The 10+ people flew towards the imperial city, and the 3 inferno nether dragons separated from each other, and the scarlet-red dragon scales started burning with scarlet flames once again. Zhu Qingxian looked at the enemies that were far away, and there wasn't any unnecessary expression on his face as he stood straight. This was the final dignity of an emperor. Sky Teacher did not cower and continued to uphold his duty. Che Hongliang took a deep breath, then shouted out loudly, "Protect His Majesty. Protect the imperial city. Protect Heaven's mansion." The gaze of the millions of soldiers gradually became firm, and the army let out a long shout. Heaven's mansion's soldiers can only die while standing. There is no need to kneel while living. After returning back to Leisure Bar, Yihua woke up his daughter. Dong Wangli was curious as to why she fell asleep, and she had an unhappy look on her face. "Yutong, let's go out to eat spicy hot pot tonight." Yihua carried his daughter and looked at Conan. Qing Yutong could be seen wearing an apron and holding onto a rag, cleaning up the place. In order to continue living here, she didn't even mind becoming a servant. "I don't have money." Qing Yutong pouted her mouth. "Is there any brother-in-law like you? You are almost squeezing sister-in-law dry." Dong Wangli smiled happily. "Daddy, are we really going to eat spicy hot pot?" Ali hasn't eaten spicy hot pot for a long time already. "Daddy, I will bring Ali to eat spicy hot pot tonight." Qing Yutong's eyes shone, then hurriedly ran over and massaged her brother-in-law's shoulders, then said sweetly, "Brother-in-law, bring me along, you glutton, you sure can eat a lot." Yihua said faintly. He admired his sister-in-law's appetite. "I am a glutton." Dong Wangli said with a childish voice, "Only those who look good are called gluttons, those who don't look good are called gluttons." "Aya. Are you saying that Aunt Qing looks ugly?" While speaking, Qing Yutong stretched out her hand and scratched an itch on Dong Wangli's face. Dong Wangli was about to die from laughing. Looking at the two of them arguing, the corner of Yihua's mouth arced up. How much longer are these two women going to argue for? Suddenly, a burst of noise rang out. Bang, 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 bang. "Daddy, what's that sound?" Dong Wangli, who was paralyzed in Qing Yutong's embrace, asked curiously. "The storefront at the side is being renovated." Yihua felt annoyed when he heard that sound. "However, I am a citizen with quality, if not, would have long started renovating the storefront." The storefront at the side of Leisure Bar had always been empty, but in the recent few days, the storefront was actually rented out. During the day, there would be a dong 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 sound, but fortunately, there was no sound at night. "Daddy, do we have neighbors now?" Dong Wangli smiled and said. "I feel that having neighbors seems to be a very good thing." Yihua said faintly, "You can say so." "Daddy, let's go and greet them then." "Yihua, how can I, the Supreme Overlord, possibly go and greet others? I will definitely not go and greet them." 5 minutes later, Dong Wangli and Qin Yutong could be seen dragging Yihua, who had an unwilling look on his face, out of the door. The structure of this house was pretty much the same as Yihua's house. Both of them were 2 storefronts. However, Yi Hua's house had 3 storefronts. Qin Yutong held on to Dong Huang Li's hand and walked at the front, while Yi Hua walked at the back with a cigarette in his mouth. "Beauty, this house is currently being renovated. It is best for you not to come in, be careful not to get hurt." An uncle who was currently tearing down a signboard said with goodwill. Qin Yutong asked curiously, "Master, what are you two preparing to do?" "I heard from the boss that we are preparing to open a bar." Chapter 423. After hearing that, Yi Hua and Qin Yutong felt confused and shocked at the same time. Qin Yutong felt that her brother-in-law was already weird enough to open a bar in this kind of place. I wonder how he survived in the past. I didn't expect that there would be someone who would open a bar in this kind of place. Could it be because the rent here is cheap? That is indeed the case. However, this is clearly going against brother-in-law, trying to steal business. It seems like I won't be able to steal any business. For a bar that doesn't have any customers, stealing business is impossible. Yi Hua felt that it was time to send his sister-in-law up, Yutong, advertise the bar in a few days. Qin Yutong was about to kneel down to her brother-in-law. Not only does brother-in-law want to squeeze his sister-in-law dry, he also wants to squeeze her body dry. "Brother-in-law, I have already become like this, who would still recognize me?" Qin Yutong pinched her own face and said. Because Yi Hua had been looking at her every day, he didn't feel that his sister-in-law had changed at all. Qin Yutong asked towards the renovation master, "Master, do you recognize me?" The master looked at Qin Yutong, and his heart started beating a bit. "She is truly beautiful, miss. I am a man with a family, please do not harass me." Qin Yutong, Yi Hua actually laughed, and Dong Huangli laughed until she cried. This sentence was too heart-wrenching, and Qin Yutong felt that it was already a miracle for this man to be able to find a wife. Dong Huangli held on to her brother-in-law's arm. "I knew it, no one would recognize me now." "Daddy, carry." Yi Hua carried his daughter into his embrace and said faintly, "Let's take a look first." The 3 walked towards the outside of the alley. "Isn't it just a bar at the side? What's so great about it?" "I, the Supreme Overlord, accept your challenge." Yi Hua had once brought his wife here to eat konjac spicy pot, but unfortunately now, his wife was gone. Spicy pot was just a pot of random stew, and it was mainly spicy. A lot of youngsters like to eat spicy pot, after all, it was cheap and tasty. "Daddy, Ollie wants to eat chicken wings, beef meatballs, crab chops, fish balls, and..." "Brother-in-law, I want to eat beef, streaky pork, tiger skin, bacon, sausage, pork tenderloin, meat and bone." "These 2 carnivores," Yi Hua said, "also give me some potatoes, lettuce, cucumber, lettuce, cabbage, fried tofu, chives, cabbage." "Hello, sir, that's 198 yuan. Yi Hua took out his phone and took a look at the change. "Is there a discount?" "It's a small business, 188 RMB will do." The lady boss also saw that Yi Hua was handsome. If not, she wouldn't pay a single cent less. The remaining 10 yuan were 10 yuan. After finding a table and sitting down, Qin Yutong took out her phone and played with it. Yi Hua held on to his daughter's hand and silently waited for the dishes to be served. "Daddy, Li is going to have her 3rd birthday soon," Dong Huangli suddenly said. Yi Hua paused for a moment. "I have never celebrated my birthday before, and I have forgotten that there is such a thing." Thinking about the time when I had sex with Dong Huang Baiji, and after that, I was pregnant for 10 months. It should be around October, right? Yi Hua carried his daughter and said, "Whatever Ali wants, Daddy will satisfy you." Qin Yutong placed down her phone. "This little brat is becoming more and more cunning. I want Daddy and Mommy to be together." Dong Huang Li's tone contained traces of sadness and desolation. Dong Huang Li played the role of an innocent child to the fullest. In the past, Yi Hua was also the best male lead, and Dong Huang Li was Yi Hua's daughter. Dong Huang Li possessed a powerful genetic inheritance, and she was more than enough to be a small acting actress. Hearing his daughter's wish, Yihua felt very helpless. I am able to give Li whatever she wants, but this is the only thing that I am unable to do. How can I, the Supreme Overlord, lower my head to those two foolish women? Daddy, Dong Huangli raised her head, her big eyes were watery, and she looked extremely pitiful. After finished speaking, Dong Huangli intimately rubbed against her father's chin. Qin Yutong said from the side, "Brother-in-law, you weren't present for Li's last 2 birthdays, you should at least satisfy Li's wish this time, right?" What this sister-in-law said makes sense. As a father, I have already missed my child's birthday twice, and this year can be counted as the first time. Can't you even satisfy a child's wish? However, I will not go and pick them up. Ali, I will leave this matter to you. However, Daddy will not go and pick up Mommy. Yihua said gravely. Hearing that, Dong Huangli pouted. However, I will first arrange for Daddy and Mommy to meet. Perhaps, when they meet, their emotions will explode, and they will be able to give birth to a younger brother. Thinking up to here, Dong Huangli happily agreed. At this time, the dishes were served. Although the dishes were only medium spicy, Dong Huangli and Qin Yutong's faces still turned red from the spiciness. While eating, Wei Chang also sent a message over to Yihua. Wei Chang had already dealt with everything, and not a single person was left alive. Meanwhile, all of the money and items were taken care of by Zhu Tian. Yihua expressed that he understood. Seems like Zhu Tian still wants to use that move to lure the snake out of its hole. Then, I will let him use it and see if it is effective or not. The 2 beauties, one big and one small, were more or less finished, and Dong Huangli's stomach was already bulging up. It is a child's nature to sleep after eating. Yihua carried his daughter and brought his sister-in-law home. In the eyes of others, this was the rhythm of a family of 3. However, when they arrived at the entrance of Leisure Bar, a Bentley appeared at the entrance. Foreign car plate. The chauffeur immediately got off the car and opened the door. However, before the chauffeur opened the door, the back seat's door was already opened. A man and a woman could be seen getting off the car. Yihua recognized this man. He is Wang Debao, the man who lost to him while gambling. Wang Debao returned the money the next day. This woman's appearance is not bad, right? If I didn't guess wrongly, she should be Bai Cixin. Young Master Yi. Wang Debao and his wife Bai Cixin slowly walked over and shouted out respectfully. Yihua wrinkled his brows and said, "Call him boss, this young Master Yi sounds uncomfortable." "All right, boss." Yihua nodded his head, then walked towards Leisure Bar. Soon after, Yihua sat in the lounge and let Qin Yutong carry his daughter to the lounge to rest. After being chased out of the north by Voidless Realm, they were not welcomed in the south, and could be counted as a street rat. Yihua took out a stick of cigarette and said faintly, "Don't stand, sit." With a sincere smile on his face, Wang Debao sat down together with his wife Bai Cixin. If those deities were to see this, they would definitely cry out injustice. Why are they able to sit together with you and negotiate while we can't? Because Yihua felt that Wang Debao was an honest person, unlike Xiao Yi who would only submit to him because he was afraid of him. His first impression of Wang Debao was pretty good. Yihua's impression of the deities had never been very good. Yihua's impression of the deities was even worse than that of these ordinary humans. Even the auntie who was selling Chinese crepes at the entrance of the alley looked much more comfortable than the deities. Chapter 424. Speak, what did you come here for? Yihua asked. In actuality, there was no need to ask to know what they were trying to say. They wanted to hug onto Yihua's thigh. Wang Debao took out a card and placed it on the table. "Boss, this is a small gift for our first meeting. Please accept it." Looking at the bank card on the table, Yihua somehow felt that the other party was here to flaunt his wealth. "It's not that I don't have money. I am enjoying life, do you understand? You bunch of mortals, how can you understand my intentions? To actually use this kind of dirty money to bribe me. Do you really think that I am the kind of person who would be blinded by money? Take it away, I don't need it." Yi Hua's expression turned cold. The couple looked at each other. Wang Debao couldn't keep the card. Qin Yutong hid on the stairs and peeked at Yi Hua. Brother-in-law, just what kind of situation is this? Don't act cool anymore, at least bring us to eat a sumptuous meal. It has been a long time since we last ate seafood. I miss lobsters. I feel hungry again. Bai Cixin actually took out 2 Furong Kings and said with a smile, Boss, I know you like to smoke this, so I bought 2. Put it here, he said. The fact that the man in front of her could accept her meant that it was a good thing. At the very least, he didn't have any evil intentions. Boss, my wife and I don't have any intention of coming here today. We're just here to pay you a visit. Bai Cixin seemed to have become steadier and more cautious after going through this ordeal. Just a visit? Get close to him. Then, your goal has already been achieved. Yi Hua said faintly. Didn't you say that you are here to pay a visit? Shouldn't it be time for me to leave? Bai Cixin nodded and said with a smile, Boss, there have been more foreigners in the south recently. The bar next to yours is also opened by a foreigner. After he finished speaking, Wang Debao and Bai Cixin obediently left the leisure bar. Yi Hua silently smoked his cigarette. Foreigner? According to Wei Chang, there were indeed a lot more foreigners recently. Whatever. They are all people who want to take advantage of me. When the time comes, I will just have to do a big purge. A week passed quickly, and everything was on track. Wei Chang and Tang Wei continued to work in leisure bar. Of course, there were also Green and Red brothers. It was just that it was hard for them to guard an empty bar. It was worth noting that Absolute Heaven had bought the Shao mansion. After all, that place was indeed not bad. It was very suitable to be chosen as the headquarters of an aristocratic family. Moreover, it was a ready-made place. If the reconstruction would take a very long time, Yi Hua's order was to finish it as soon as possible. He bought the Shao residence and changed it into the Dongfang residence. Then, he began to prepare to rope them in. The Dongfang family should be as popular as they were in the past. Otherwise, why would the other aristocratic families be jealous? If he wasn't jealous, how could he frame him? Everything was going according to Absolute Heaven's plan, without the slightest deviation. Dong Huangli was also sent back to Voidless Realm. Recently, Yi Hua had been a bit restless. His daughter's birthday was getting closer and closer, and this meant that the time for him to meet with Qingye and Baiji was getting closer and closer. I'm a little nervous. These 2 foolish women are actually able to make me feel uneasy, truly amazing. Brother-in-law, can you calm down for a bit? Zizi is still doing her homework. Qin Yutong said helplessly after walking out of the house. She was obviously excited to death, yet she still had an indifferent look on her face. Brother-in-law was really a man who cared about his reputation. Yi Hua lit up a cigarette and walked down the stairs. Only to see that the bar was deserted, the waiters were standing there and chatting. However, Yi Hua actually saw Zi Shan among the attendants. This group of shameless people, they are all here to take my money. Believe it or not, I will make all of you break up. Yi Hua quietly stood at the side and listened to what they were chatting about. Zi Shan, I didn't expect that your honor's bar would be so miserable. Yi Hua, ever since your honor had your wife, the bar's business dropped by 90%. Tang Wei sighed with emotion. In the past, before your honor's wife appeared, the bar's business was too good. Big Brother Green said, I heard that the 7 bar next to us will be opening for business tomorrow, and they even invited quite a few celebrities over to help out. There are even Hollywood celebrities among them. Yi Hong said in a low voice, they might be able to drive our business along. Do I even need others to drive my business along? Cough. Seeing that his honor suddenly walked out of the bar, the 5 people immediately separated from each other and began wiping the spotless table. There really isn't a single person here. Could it be that I have to sell my body in exchange for popularity? While smoking, Yi Hua walked out of the bar, then turned his head around and looked at the 7 bar that was at the side. Yi Hua thought that the other party was a poor person, which was why he opened the bar here. Seems like the other party isn't a poor person, they came prepared. To actually want to show off their strength to me, good. I, the Supreme Overlord, will personally meet you all tomorrow and see just who exactly are you all. After walking out of the alley, Yihua went out to take a walk. However, he discovered that the 7 bars advertisements were everywhere on the street, and there was even a fleet of cars that were advertising all over the city. Shameless people, you think that you are amazing just because you have some stinky money. Don't wait for my wife to come back, she will slap your face every minute. Hee hee, voidless realm. Dong Huangli was bouncing back and forth between the buildings. Right now, everyone recognized Dong Huangli, and when they saw her, they all shouted out respectfully, "We pay our respects to your highness." Dong Huangli was also very polite. When she saw a man, she would call a man big brother, and when she saw a woman, she would call a woman big sister. Dong Huangli was simply too likable. I even forgot about the bad things that the little fellow did. Your Highness, the Empress asked you to go back to eat. A maid suddenly landed beside Dong Huangli. After rubbing onto her stomach, Dong Huangli burped, then muttered, "It's time to eat again. It is still better to eat at Daddy's place, I can lose weight." Qingye and Dong Huang Baiji could be seen sitting at the table, chatting while waiting for the child to return. Mommy Qing. Right now, Dong Huangli was no longer afraid, because her mother was no longer scolding her anymore. Dong Huang Baiji picked up her handkerchief and wiped off the sweat on her daughter's forehead. "Where did you run off to this time? Your forehead is filled with sweat." "Ali, of course I have to walk around, I have already become fat." Dong Huangli pinched onto her chubby little face, feeling very depressed. Mommy's place is filled with delicacies, while Daddy's place is filled with vegetables and carrots. Qingye said with a smile, "I wonder who it is. When Daddy just came back, he looked as if he didn't eat anything for a few days. Daddy is so pitiful, he is always very frugal and only eats vegetables and carrots. Furthermore, the restaurant's business is not doing well, and there is even a bar that opened beside the restaurant to compete with the restaurant. Daddy is about to go bankrupt, and when the time comes, Ali will have to go and eat dirt together with Daddy." Dong Huangli looked at the 2 adults and said pitifully, "Turning her father into a man who is about to go bankrupt." Qingye and Dong Huang Baiji went into a daze for a moment. Did this Yihua live such a miserable life? Qingye thought about it and agreed. Back then, when I met him, I was still using Wei Chang's salary. From this, it can be seen how poor he is. Chapter 425. After the 2 women heard what Yihua said, they were speechless. With Yihua's temperament, even if the sky were to collapse, he would still want to act cool. How could he possibly go and jump into a river? Even if he jumped, he wouldn't die from jumping. He was not worried at all. Seeing that Dong Huangli's mommy is actually not nervous at all, it seems like Daddy's death is not a threat to them at all. "Mommy," Dong Huangli shouted out with her mushy voice. Hearing her daughter's tone, Dong Huang Baiji immediately knew what was going to happen. Dong Huang Baiji asked, "What happened?" "Mommy, you actually asked me what's wrong? You don't even love Ali. It was normal that Papa didn't know his birthday, but Mama didn't even remember it. The baby was unhappy. Come and coax him." Qingye took a look at Dong Huang Baiji. What happened to Ali? He was inexplicably angry. Dong Huang Baiji suddenly thought of it and said with a smile, "Mommy, you're wrong. I forgot that Ali's birthday is coming up soon." Dong Huangli puffed out her cheeks and remained silent. "Alright, what does Ali want this year? Mama will satisfy you, okay? Is that true?" Dong Huangli asked while blinking her big eyes. Dong Huang Baiji nodded her head with certainty. However, Dong Huangli looked towards Qingye. "Alright, Mommy Qing will agree to Ali's request." Qingye smiled dotingly. Dong Huangli was very happy, but she still said faintly, "I want Daddy and Mommy to be together." Sigh, Ali is so sensible. If Yihua was half as sensible as Ali, how could I not return home? Towards Ali's wish, Qingye and Donghuang Baiji did not know how to reply. Ali knows that Papa and Mama have misunderstood each other, so you don't have to go to each other. Ali will arrange a place, and then we will go together, okay? After the two women heard what Yihua said, they felt that this was a good idea. Perhaps, this is a chance for us to reconcile. Now, it all depends on what Yihua says. As long as Yihua shows a bit of weakness to us, then we will forget about this matter, and we will continue living our lives. After all, continuing on like this isn't a solution. Ali wants a complete family, and not a single-parent family. Seeing that her mommy had agreed to her request, Dong Huangli was overjoyed. You have to cherish this opportunity and make up with each other. You can't quarrel anymore. If you quarrel, Li has to coax you. As a child, it's really hard. On the second night, the 7 bar that was beside Yihua opened for business. Yihua sat in his office and listened to the clamor outside of the bar and the rumbling sound of the supercar, and he was a bit unhappy. This was a blatant provocation. He stood up and walked to the window, only to see a sea of people. The young people waiting to enter were all lined up outside the alley. A few months ago, my leisure bar was also the same. I didn't expect that after a few months, my leisure bar would become so cold and cheerless. My leisure bar must have definitely been cursed by Qingye and Baiji. This kind of thought was good enough to pass through his mind. It obviously wouldn't work. If he was really hung up and whipped, there would really be no hope for him. With an unhappy mood, Yihua walked down the stairs. It was completely empty. Seeing that his honor had gone up and down the stairs, Wei Chang and the others felt a bit awkward, not knowing how to comfort his honor. After all, doing business was inevitable. Anyway, it was already like this. He just needed to get used to it in the future. What are you looking at? I don't have to work. Yihua shouted out coldly. These subordinates of mine are all brainless. A few days ago, I still wanted to say that they are smart, but right now, others are already doing things like this, and you all are just staying here. Don't you all know how to go out and do things? Don't you know how to smash the place? Do you even need me to teach you how to do things? Seeing that his honor flew into a rage, everyone turned their heads around and went back to work. They even had to wipe a cup for a few hours, sitting on the bar counter. The more Yihua thought about it, the more unhappy he became. They are already bullying me, I can't tolerate it. Little Green, come out with me. Yihua decided to bring one person along to smash the place. Why did he only bring one person? Because if there were more people, it would seem like he was going to bully others. Why did he bring Big Brother Green? Because he is the only one who is single. Why did he choose to be single? At the very least, within the entire team, Little Green is the only one who is single. Hearing that his honor called out to him, Big Brother Green immediately became alert. His honor is definitely going to help me find a wife. This is great. Right now, within the entire team, I am the only one who is single. This is very embarrassing. Look at my little brother, that beautiful wife, then look at me, that oily green head of mine. Yihua stood up and walked out of the leisure bar, and Big Brother Green followed behind him. Little Green. Do you know how to smash the place? Yihua took out a stick of cigarette and asked. Big Brother Green didn't dare to brag and said honestly, subordinate has always had this thought, but I have never tried it before. Do it tonight then. Yes. Smash the place. Just thinking about it made Big Brother Green's scalp go numb from excitement. This isn't as simple as smashing the place, this is smashing the place together with his honor. What kind of glory is this? His honor truly thinks too highly of me, I must definitely perform well tonight. The two walked towards the 7 bar that was at the side, and at the entrance of the bar, there were quite a few beautiful young ladies with their thighs exposed to the air. Yihua couldn't help but take a look at them. I wasn't like this in the past, I must have definitely been bewitched by Qingye and Donghuang Baiji. Suddenly, one of the young ladies walked out from the group of young ladies. Yihua sneered. Yet another woman who was bewitched by me. It's a pity that I, the Supreme Overlord, am going to strictly reject you. A burst of fragrance drifted past. Yihua stopped his footsteps. I actually walked over. I, the Supreme Overlord, was actually ignored by a young lady. How is this possible? Are you alone? The questioning voice of a young lady rang out from behind. The corner of Yihua's mouth twitched slightly. Little Green was actually struck up by a young lady. Why is my underling so outstanding? In actuality, Big Brother Green had quite a personality. Right now, he was no longer that kind of afro hairstyle. He had learned from his honor and combed his hair back. Furthermore, with the green windbreaker, he looked a bit handsome, just like the villain clown. Girls still like this type of guy. With Yihua's cold face and his imposing aura, ordinary girls really didn't dare to get close to him. Looking at the young lady who was striking up a conversation with him, Big Brother Green did not have a happy look on his face. Instead, he was in a bad mood as he said gravely, "If I am not a human, what am I? Am I a pig?" After the young lady heard what Big Brother Green said, she went into a daze for a moment, then said with a smile, "Can I have your phone number?" Big Brother Green's expression immediately sunk as he said coldly, "Are you sick? My phone number is worth a few thousand. Can I give it to you?" This time, the young lady really went into a daze. So he wasn't joking, he was straight, "Sorry for disturbing you," the young lady said, then ran back to her group of sisters. After that, she shared what happened just now with her sisters. She dares to bet that if this green hair is able to find a girlfriend, she will go and eat shit. Yihua patted onto Big Brother Green's shoulder. "Don't pay attention to this kind of woman, she always asks for this and that, with just a look, I can tell that she isn't a good person." You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.